Roysambu's MCA Sospeter Mumbi addressing journalists after they held a Kamkunji meeting at City Hall. This event comes as Kericho governor is set to know his fate today.
Tumechoka kuenda kupiga magoti kwa governor, tumechoka kupigia ma-CEC na ma-chief officer. Wamekuwa wao ndio wanafanya mambo, maendeleo inafanyika mtaani, lakini hawahusishi hata bunge. Wameanza kutengeneza ma-coordinators wao huko ndio wafanyie wananchi kazi, ili hali wanaondoa MCA. So huo msimamo wa signature sisi tumeachia viongozi wetu na tumewaambia tuko tayari.
And moving on, the Social Health Authority has suspended 45 health facilities across 18 counties from accessing benefits due to the fraudulent SHA claims. The list includes prominent hospitals such as Lenmek Hospital in Kisii, Northgate Hospital in Garissa, and 2 Equity Afya branches in Homa Bay and Mandera. This comes hours after the Chief Justice, David Maraga, called on the EACC to investigate and take firm action against those involved in SHA fraud, where billions of shillings have allegedly been lost. Maraga called on President William Ruto to also take act on this matter.
All that the president is supposed to do is to disclose to EACC the raw intelligence information he has for them to investigate. He is under duty. He is under duty under the constitution to have those people prosecuted. In fact, the whole back stops at his door. All this, SHA is something he has urged Kenyans to get into. So he knows the whole system.
And finally, medical students at the University of Nairobi yesterday staged protests over delayed exam results, accusing the administration of negligence. The students said the results expected in July are now almost 2 months late, yet the university is set to reopen on the 1st of next week.
For medics, for you to progress to the next academic year, you need your results from the previous academic year. We have not yet got our results. Our comrades are anxious, they are frustrated, and we believe as the student leaders and the student representative that this is cruel, unjust, and oppressive.
And the delay of results, one, affects the students who are actually on scholarship, bursaries, and sponsorship. Because for you to get that scholarship from your well-wisher, you have to give a transcript of the results so that that well-wisher or the guardian or whoever is sponsoring you to at least bring those funds so that you can continue learning.
Our stations, that is SpiceFM, Barur FM, as well as Radio Maisha, continue to bring live the EPL matches. Be sure to enjoy that entertainment. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see us use their offices to serve the people, if you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, you'd be a fool to say, conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit.
Say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruth.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, staki kuongea today. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change.
Statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Good morning. Hey, am I supposed to be doing those things in front of the microphone? Hey, my teacher would go crazy.
Good morning.
Say it again.
Good morning.
Well done.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good morning. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. And getting into a proper. Sindio,
Kabsa.
how was your day yesterday?
Fine, thank you, Nashkuru. It was good. The sun came out to play yesterday, and I really basked in it.
I'm sure you did. Those of you who feel cold 24 hours a day, 365, the sun did you a favor.
Sana.
Okay, today you're wearing a tie.
This was my dad's tie when I was in primary school. So when I joined Standard the first time and I was going on television, he sent me this tie.
Hold on a minute. Yesterday you wore your dad's hat.
Yes.
Today you're wearing your dad's tie.
Yes.
What's going on?
Me and my dad are bros like that. That's why I can miss Okari.
Your daddy's boy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. So like when you see
that's why like when I tell Okari,
so you see me like you miss me like you miss your father?
My brother.
What are you trying to say?
I miss you like I miss my brother.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Just embrace it. What's wrong with you?
No.
Speaking of which, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
I'm good. Though I hardly slept last night.
I actually love your shirt.
You know, there's just something about homa ya watoto haishangi.
It doesn't. And then you're going to get it again. Please breathe over there.
No, I don't have a cold.
Now you don't?
No, not even beginnings of a cold. I'm okay.
Okay.
But it's just something about
It's not
kids.
easy for them.
Yeah.
Wait, Danny said he likes your shirt.
Yeah, I like that shirt, son.
Yeah. Guys.
I like your shirt.
Me, I'll run away from this studio. See, there's no exit door around here. The exit is behind you. I'll just jump through this window and go through it.
Hey, wait.
Thank you for liking my shot.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
What's established in Kiswahili?
I didn't get it from Kenya.
Okay.
No.
It's one of those.
One of your travel.
Yeah, you will not see any like this.
Oh, we are sorry. For people who rest, they don't sleep.
Yeah.
They don't buy clothes in the locale. Sasa, what's established in Kiswahili?
Establish in Swahili.
Yes.
Wait, establish in Swahili.
Has to confirm. Establish ni that one.
I'm Njeri.
Ngumu.
Why did you ask that?
Because I want to know. I literally.
Give us context.
Yes.
We might be able to help.
Kitambulisha.
No, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like
Kujitambulisha.
Kujitambulisha is I have
Kudhibitisha.
myself.
What about kudhibitisha? What is she saying? I can't
establish is not to grow. Establish is to establish. I don't know. I'm asking because I want to know. Everybody, you see, even the people in the control room.
Kudhibitisha, right?
Kudhibitisha. Okay. Tumefanya nini sasa? Dhibitisha. Tumedhibitisha sisi wote tuko salama. Sisi zote tuko salama. That's all I wanted. That's all I was looking for. You see, I've even put people to work. Evelyn, Joylene, they've been working. And just for my pleasure. Thanks, guys. Speaking of Evelyn is fine. I've seen her myself today, and she's doing all right. She's looking pretty good. And even Joylene has helped us to establish that establish is to grow. Kudhibitisha that everything is all right. And we're getting into things this morning. Ruth is turning things on the other side and making sure that you know what's going on. Guys, thanks for putting it together every morning. We not get tired of saying that. So good morning and welcome. This is the Situation Room. It's the 27th of August. Cinder, Amma? Yes, it is. Excuse me. And we'll have a number of conversations today. Let me let you know what those will be.
Where?
What's going on? Is that my phone?
Okay, that's your phone.
Sorry.
Let us hear what you're hearing.
No, that's for later. For now, let me tell you. Good morning, our audiences. Our live streams are up on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X this morning. KTN, our audience on KTN, Karibu Sana. As we get into things this morning, let me let you know what we will be talking about today. Sawa. All right, we're going to start off the conversation at 7 o'clock with the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party. His name is Jeremiah Kioni. He joins us and we'll be talking Katiba at 15. The word constitution has fallen off of his mouth a lot in history, and he's joining us. The changing face of Kenyan politics. If anybody knows about that, he does. We'll start off that conversation this morning with Jeremiah Kioni at 15. 15 years of the Constitution. Dr. Maxwell Miyawa is an international development law scholar and advocate. He joins us at 8 o'clock because we'll be talking about this as well. 15 years of the Constitution. Have human rights been served? That's the question that we will be asking. We'll have that conversation with him from 8 to 10. And you wonder why 10? Because from that time as well, a number of you join us in the studio this morning, and we'll have Spice's first baraza, where we will hear from people whether human rights have been served or not. It's an opportunity for us to take Kenya's biggest conversation to the people, and we'll be doing that as often as we can. So we do that for the first time today, and folks join us in the studio this morning for that conversation. So let's do that. Let's have it and let's spread it, Kenya's biggest conversation, to the mouths of others as well. Sawa.
Yes.
It's Wednesday, and it will be happening more often. And can I just go ahead and say it, Eve, that any time that you want to be part of the audience that speaks in the studio, you can just send us a message. Eve will continue taking those names down, and we'll get in touch with folks who can then join the studio audience. Let's see how big it gets, and who knows where we'll take it, on the ground, on the road. Who knows? That's what we'll do. Those are the conversations that we have today, getting into things. All right. We're going to get into today's proverb after I remind you of an email. What email is that? It's wealth.ke@sc.com. Standard Chartered Priority Banking is reminding us that, you know what, sometimes you're not quite sure what or to do with your money or how to grow it. There's never been a better time to take control of your financial future. So when we say now is your time for wealth, we're not just throwing around a tagline. We're talking about being deliberate with your money, your goals, and your legacy. Standard Chartered Priority Banking offers a comprehensive approach to managing your finances, meeting both your current lifestyle needs and your future aspirations. So whether you're thinking about starting a portfolio or streamlining your assets, the advice is personalized, it's strategic, and tailored to where you are in life. And I get it. When you worked so hard to build something, trust and security become everything. You want a partner who's not just competent, but consistent. Someone who protects what matters and helps you grow it. That's what you get with Standard Chartered, a solid, trusted partner who understands wealth isn't just about money, it's about the people, values, and futures behind it. So remember, email wealth.ke@sc.com to begin your journey, because your time is now. All right, The beaches of the Seychelles are absolutely stunning. It's one of the other places apart from Kenya where you will then enjoy the white sandy beaches, and they have proverbs.
Yes.
Okay.
And the proverb today is short and simple. Right? Strike while the iron is hot. Strike while the iron is hot. Yes, Okari.
Strike while the iron is hot. Can interpret it in different ways. So, if you are a business person, for example, and you have an opportunity to strike a deal, and then you waste an opportunity, then you miss not only just the opportunity, but you miss what you call an entry point to either something bigger and better. So the idea here is, if you're in business, strike when the opportunity just comes your way. Don't wait, don't procrastinate, because procrastination then is the enemy of progress. So you better cover what needs to be covered today, or how they say, sasa. Na kama si sasa,
ni sasa hivi.
Ni sasa hivi. So don't wait for tomorrow, because opportunities sometimes come knocking once in a lifetime. There's even a scripture that says, time and chance happens once. Let me actually get it. Why am I stressing myself here? It's in Ecclesiastes, I think. Time and chance happen to... Yes, it's in Ecclesiastes 9:11. I was right. Time and chance happen to them all. So you have one time, you have one chance, one opportunity to get it right. Yeah.
It's interesting. I just remember as you say that, and taking the literal meaning of it, I think of blacksmiths and goldsmiths. See how you form your jewelry out of, the metal itself, or you form things out of the metal. And so two things. I remember watching the program How It's Made, one of my most favorite things to do.
I used to love that program.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And so you find that when they're making all these metal things, screws and whatever, it must be they heat it to 200 degrees, because it has to be in a molten state in order for you to then form it into what you want it to be. And also with glass. So I went over here to Kitengela Glass once, and I just watched how they blow out the hot glass. You can't form something if you haven't broken it down. You have to break it down to an almost liquid state, and then you form it. Because once it dries, it's done. You can't do it again. You have to break it and melt it again for it to take a different form. And that's the only time you can form it. When things are hot, I guess, that is the time that you now can form it. Once it has dried and cooled down, you're done. So if you take an opportunity while things are happening, and you can form things from there, in life, in everything. I remember my basketball coach used to also say that the time to practice for free throws is when you're tired, you're hot, you're sweating, because in the heat of the game, it is that point that matters when you're taking that shot. It's that you have to make it when you're tired. It's not when you're cool that you'll not make the shot. No, it's in the heat of things that you actually make a mark.
Basically, it's about timing.
It's timing. It's the timing. Because once you lose it, you're done.
Yeah, there's a show on Netflix. It's called Blown Away. It's about glass, and it's interesting. You went to Kitengela. I've always wanted to go to that place.
You should go. It's amazing.
I watched that show, Blown Away. It's so therapeutic, just watching how they do, but it then shows you how difficult it is to have this glassware and all these what are they called? The things, the decor. It's so difficult to get those things done. But I've just remembered when Kenya was playing Madagascar. Did you guys watch? There was a penalty kick that was taken when the keeper, I think, was not ready. Was talking to somebody or looking away, and the guy just scored. He didn't even move. And I thought that was going to be disallowed. And it was actually a goal. It was counted. Speaks of timing. So the guy watched the keeper keenly, observed, is distracted. put the sport kick in, and that's it.
It's pretty much just speaks of going for opportunity, and you look at it from different perspectives. You remember during, I'll give you an example, during the COVID time, that was an opportunity for a lot of people to get out of poverty. You know, I'll give you an example of my cousin. He lives in China, and at the time when PPEs were being imported from China and whatnot, he took that opportunity to be the person shipping and connecting businesses to the manufacturers in China, and out of that he just became a millionaire one day.
Wow.
He saw the opportunity, took it and ran with it. He didn't wait for anyone to give him
for somebody to say, don't do it, because
who knew Zoom before COVID?
Nobody knew Zoom was.
None of us knew what Zoom was. We only knew Skype.
Yes.
And what else? It was just Skype, mainly. Nobody knew what Zoom was, and apparently it had existed before, but it wasn't profitable. But soon as COVID hit, the guy became a multi-billionaire.
Indeed. Too many examples. It's a great proverb, actually. And it will be great to see what folks do with that today. All right, so we say good morning to people. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining in to the show today. Always good to have you in the room, folks, and, starting to... send your salams to us as we do and get into the program today. So thank you so much for doing that, as you always do. And in fine form this morning, Don Sabo is saying, Ndu, yes, even ask Okari.
Oh, boy.
Is the 200 million shilling, what? Is the 200 million National Hospital Equipment Program serviced by SHA contributions? And you say?
No.
You know the answer.
Okay. There is your answer. And then he goes on to say, how are you, Ndu, Aseto, and Okari? And then you say, we are?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks. All right. Peter Kiari is tuning from Mombasa. Most of your problems start and end inside your head. Is very true. Release negativity in your mind and make peace for positive, uplifting thoughts. Raise your self-worth. I agree. Karibu sana. Hisa Daniel is tuning this morning. Nikondani. R says Tupo. R, good morning. Robert Ogoh is tuning from Mombasa. Good morning, Robert. General Isa Madenge tuned in from Diani. Desmond Otis says, Habari zenu. The people of Nyatike need to be generous to bury a dead body without a coffin. New choyo. Okay. Rogers Yang is tuning from Voi. Monica Oile says, good morning. Happy hump day to you too, sister. Silas Akala says, good morning, Spice family. Niko ndani kabisa. Sao Paulo, Brazil. Tukumbwekse.
Ngumi ni Mbwekse.
Okay. Sure. No worries. JB Mutua is tuning in this morning. Says good morning from NJ, New Jersey. Leo says good morning, Princess Ndu. Good morning, Leo. And Dennis. A great contract between citizenry and their leaders, sabotaged by greed, impunity, self-seekers in one person saying their word is now law. Telling you. Peter Caricho says Jambo, Kenya. Tuned in from Queen Greek in Arizona, waiting for the hot conversation. Sawa. EVE umesalimiwa. Tibbs Mugai tuned in SpiceFM. Gachagua is saying that he can only report William Ruto to the public. Hopefully he brings receipts with him. Let's wait and see. Erica Ward is tuned in this morning. Duke is also here. Good morning. Moses Nandwa says good morning. And Jose says good morning, SpiceFM. Joe Mungai is tuning from Bonnie Lake and says good morning, guys. Why should we trust Kenya Moja? Same monkeys, different forest? Really? Okay. Paula Chiang says, good morning, glad to be here. Thank you so much for doing so. Iregi Wajohi says, good morning, waiting for our daily dose. Tuning from Mombasa. Ken Kegai says, como estas, Spices? The only addiction I don't mind a thing about. I love it. Jennifer Atenyi says, good morning, and good morning, happy listeners. Have a great day ahead, Asante. Mashari Njeri says, good morning, Ndu and Double Dennis, watching from Portland in Oregon. Whatever is going on in Kenya is depressing. Dr. Van Vick is tuning from Tudor. Paul Njehia says, good morning, Ndu Dennis and Dennis. Baridi in our Peleka VP. Aseto?
Tuna maintain.
Okay. Toronto. Now in Toronto, the heat has reduced and it's now 15. When it was hot for them, it's 21 degrees. When it's 21 degrees here in Nairobi, you are shivering and chattering your teeth. Now it's still warm in Toronto and it's 15 degrees.
It's in life.
Monica Joroge says, good morning. Happy Katiba Day, Spices. You guys, you know the president has actually gazetted
yes.
Today to be Katiba Day. Sawa?
Yes.
27th of August is Katiba Day. So happy Katiba Day.
So tusome Katiba.
Bas.
Tuishi kulingana na maazimio ya katiba.
Nilikuwa nataka kuambia sasa, but I couldn't find the Kiswahili words. That's exactly what I wanted to say in Kiswahili. King Dave Lubali says, good morning, great one, Spice FM. Who came up with 12 to 15 minutes of entertainment every single day? recognition tomorrow, guys. Sawa. Now there's a kiss white. I don't understand. But good morning, Paul. He likes your shirt. Bwangi Juma says, good morning, Spice. How are you all this blessed Wednesday? We are very fine. Good morning, Christina. Paris Mudhoni is tuned in and says, my trio team, good morning. Bwangi Mike says, whatever you people are smoking must be unfit for human consumption. It's Okari. But wallahi, me, I didn't do anything. Don't know, understand. Don't know. Where did you go this morning? Fiery Red says, good morning, D&D. Okari's shirt today is like this. He said it's like this.
Okay.
And the people have told us what. Okay, somebody says established is kuanzisha kutafuta kini. I don't know. Okay, so kuthibitisha, we got that. Mohammed Noor says good morning here in Gwangju. You guys are doing great. Thank you, San. Thank you so much, and you're doing great as well, I hope. Young Jedi says, Okari, you are being told you are missed even when you miss a day. Sawa. Okay. Kesh Denny says established is kuanzisha. Happy Katiba Day says Zachary, all public entities should publish schedules of all payments they make to their suppliers and to staff, including facilitation to events and anything. Sidio? Okay. Anything lately? I'm back. Hello, cousins. Good morning. Good morning, Ndu. Kenya ni wizi bila kazi. Woi, Ken John Newto, good morning. Nyakundi Emmanuel says, good morning, Spice family. Mtu Flani, you guys listen. Are you listening?
Yes.
Is it me or is Ndu's skin extra popping today?
Extra popping?
Does my skin look different? It's the light.
It's extra popping.
Bas. It's not
let's feed it. It's extra popping.
It's extra popping.
All
That's
day,
the answer.
every day.
Bas.
Plus the lighting.
There's nothing a little scrub won't do. The sisters say good morning and happy Katiba Day, an optimistic one. Amaya Okeo says good morning. Samaki, Likunje, Lingali Beach. It's true. That's the way, isn't it? When we start to, in especially around the parts where we are from, because I'm from the river, right, the coast of Nigeria, and when we want to smoke fish, you can't smoke the fish when it is when it is fresh. You bend it and tie it to smoke it. Coco. Rarami says good morning. Every opportunity say one term. Okay, you guys. Bwangi Juma says today's Proverbs meaning to take advantage of a favorable opportunity as quickly as possible because it might not last. Festa says good morning. Abdi Rahman is tuned in this morning from Ireland in Dublin. Mel Boer says knock knock. Who's there? Mel Boer is here. Rahimtullah Omar, good morning. Mildred Gumbo is also here. And Sylvian says good morning. How do I celebrate a constitution run by con institutions? Wait. Crispin Omondi says good morning and greetings from the UK. Paddington is where Ambassador Beja is this morning. Guys, good morning. Karibuni sana, and let's get into it. Thank you always for joining us every morning. Where is Agola? I don't understand. Agola is not here. But we'll continue with things this morning. Everybody who tunes in, and even if I didn't mention your name, not because we don't notice you, we recognize you and we say thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. Let's get into these conversations as we start by looking into the headlines on the front page of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. Scandalous. It's not me saying it. It is on the front page of The Standard. Scandalous. As Kenyans struggle to put food on the table amid the rising cost of living, the Ruth administration is spending millions of dollars on Washington lobbyists to polish its battered image at Capitol Hill. This follows a Republican senator's motion to Congress to reassess Kenya's standing, citing links to Sudanese warlords and a domestic record marked by abductions and killings. The Ruto presidency now appears intent on saving face. Because here are letters signed by Ambassador Carlos Trujillo, who's the president of the Continental Strategy, and he's the one now who's asking questions about what Kenya is or is not supposed to do. Foreign Affairs, the Principal Secretary Korir Singhawe, also then in all of this, trying to save face. And did this all come from the statements made by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua? We'll see. Another headline, pressure mounts on Duale to take responsibility for Shah deception. There are too many stories and evidence and receipts for this to just be conjecture. From what we saw, it just started jumping out of the woodwork, and that people went, and that's the thing about the resilience of Kenyans that I've really come to appreciate. People went out, took pictures of supposed medical facilities that had been receiving money over the last few months and said, is it possible that this place is a level 4 hospital when it's a straw hut, essentially? So those are the questions. Where are Where's our kin? Anger, grief after another body mix-up at a morgue. That one, I have to tell you, in just a minute as we get into it. Ruto offers US firm millions to clean up image amid threats. Okay. 272 million shillings. We're going to look at what that can do to improve education in just 1 year. Okay. Constitution at 15, and the story carrying that today is Old Habits Die Hard, how colonial blues have impeded constitutionalism in Kenya. And of course there is quite some covering the constitution across board. Queries as CMA allows tycoon to buy cement maker for a song. Okay. And Kakamega Bungoma lead as TSC offers 24,000 teacher promotions. Those are some of the headlines making stories in the bold newspaper. Into the Nation.
Yeah, so let's go to the Daily Nation and the headline today, 15 years of promise and hope. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Constitution 2010 and the hits here. Devolution counties have collectively received 3.6 trillion shillings since 2013 to fund development at the grassroots, and public participation, the voices of citizens, is increasingly central to laws and policies with sanctions for violations. And we also have judicial independence, where judiciary revoking illegal actions by the executive and agencies, including 2017 annulment of the presidential election. We also have the Bill of Rights as some of the hits, where landmark cases on housing, labor, gender and association promoting freedoms for ordinary Kenyans. However, we also have the misses, where state repression has been cited, compromised parliament, corruption, defiance of court orders as the misses, as we observe 15 years of the Constitution 2010. Now, Nairobi MCA's plot to impeach Sakaja and deputy, as well as how school heads are hurting free education with illegal levies. These as schools continue to reopen this week. And yesterday, the country had the honors of having His Highness the Aga Khan the Fifth, who was at State House Nairobi, was received by President William Ruto. And there's a story here of a Tanzanian who was discharged from Kenyan hospital after lonely 17 years. She got in as a 36-year-old, but she walked out of the facility as a 53-year-old. With a son who was admitted when he was 6 months, now is a Form 4 student in the country. That's a story that ends well, but then again, questions on why the family would not look for their own. Now, with the people, how the Constitution placed power in Wanjiku, as well as right to basic education, many of reformers' dreams remain unfulfilled. There is also a story on the Supreme Court, 13 years of reshaping the legal terrain in the country, and the terming presidency, the hits and misses, and how the Constitution gave the power to the people. And counties reject directive to absorb 7,414 universal healthcare workers. And in there is Tharaka Nithi Governor and Council of Governors Health Committee Chairperson Mutomi Njuki addressing journalists in Nairobi yesterday. Governors say resources must be made available before they absorb the staff. That and many more stories here that we'll be looking into, as school heads as well are now being blamed of being behind the hurt and the pain being experienced in free education in the country.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, it's my time now. Sorry, I was stuck on this story. You know, there's a segment in the Taifa Leo called Dondo. You know Dondo. You know those stories, za mashimoni, where you hear those stories, wazee, kina mama, gossip. There's one in the Standard that you missed.
Is it?
It's on page 12. It's a very interesting one. I was just lost just reading it. The man was buried without a coffin for being too stingy. You read that for us.
I'll read it for you when you are done. That's the story I'm going to.
Please.
Okay.
So, the Star, why reality check awaits rebel MPs in Raila Ruto camps. This is speaking of the by-elections. A picture of Babu Wino, Caleb Misi, Edwin Sifuna, Gathano Mushomba, Joshua Kimilu, Obadiah Barongo, Anthony Kibagendi, Cleve Gisario, President Ruto there, and Raila Odinga on the other side. So they're saying this is like a third alliance. And game of musical chairs as Ministry of Health as another scam rocks Shah. Agency to audit governor's tenure every 10 years as new bill caps chief officers' numbers. Inside pages, cold weather to persist as parts of Kenya expect rains, says Met.
Sorry, Dennis Aseto.
So the biting cold being experienced in parts of the country, Aseto, is expected to persist, according to the latest forecast. So the 7-day outlook released on August, today is when? 27th? Yesterday, actually.
Yeah.
The new outlook was released yesterday, and it's valid until September 1st, indicates that rainfall will continue over the highlands west of the Rift Valley, the Lake Victoria Basin, and parts of the Rift Valley, and intermittent cold and cloudy conditions are likely to continue over some parts of this country. So chagua moja, mvua ama baridi.
Zinakuja zote. Fanya hivi, nunua duvet ama ununue ile duvet kuna miguu.
I see what she just did.
Hey, I'm going to ile duvet na kwanga na mapicha. Yes. Picha gani?
You guys, man.
All right. LSK president among Ruto's picks for police brutality payment team. So move marks a major step in implementing 10-point MOU. The team is expected to authenticate data on eligible victims using authoritative sources such as the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the National Police Service. So the move marks a major step in implementing the 10-point MOU, apparently. Auditor to probe tenure of governors every 10 years. So governors whose administrations are tainted by malpractices could face the music in retirement if a new bill on auditing their tenures becomes law. So the County Government's Laws Amendment Bill 2025 also requires governors to nominate county executives within 14 days of their swearing in. So governors don't run counties solo. It caps the number of executives at 20, preventing county bosses from expanding the wage bill by appointing more officers than needed. The proposed law stipulates a mandatory state of the county address by governors each year before the assembly, not a separate political occasion. The bill is sponsored by Garissa Senator Abdul Haji and has been published for introduction in the Senate for the first reading. This will be very, very interesting.
Point.
Kericho governor bets on luck, files fresh objections. Mutai is accused of abuse of office, gross misconduct. So he's banking on technicalities to save his job as the Senate begins hearing his impeachment case. He's second in under a year. Anglo Leasing, guys, court declines to halt trial. So the Kamani brothers have been dealt a blow after an anti-corruption court declined their application to have hearing halted in a case where they have been charged with graft involving more than 6 billion Kenya shillings in the Anglo Leasing scandal. You know, hey,
when was
Anglo 6 billion back then
was like 60 billion.
Hey, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you look at, you know, the Anglo Leasing was such a big scandal. But you look at 6 billion and what is what we see in our headlines today is like it's pocket change.
We're stealing 2 billion bob a day.
Yeah.
So 6 billion is just 3 days worth of stealing.
terrible stuff.
When you put it like that, it's crazy.
So graft is turning investors away from Kenya. This is according to British High Commissioner Neil Wigan during an interview, and he says there's political will to fight it, but execution is lagging. Those are stories.
Isn't that the story of our lives?
Yes.
Okay.
Lagging.
Let's look at this story, and as we look at some of them.
Yes.
A man buried without a coffin for being too stingy. You know, these are the stories that make the news.
No.
I don't know what that is, but okay. A 40-year-old man in northeast Kadem, Migori County.
Home.
Hello?
Is that my people?
All right. He was buried without a coffin after relatives claimed he had been mean in his life and never contributed to any funeral held at his home. According to Area Chief Onyango Akal, the unusual burial sparked outrage among villagers, prompting the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to summon the man's relatives for questioning. Some community members reported the matter, saying the burial was disrespectful. I mean, for goodness sake, how do you bury a man without a coffin? Chief Akal said the man, who had been living alone since separating from his wife 10 years ago, fell ill Sunday night and was rushed to hospital. Unfortunately, he died before receiving treatment. His relatives later directed that the body be taken straight home instead of being preserved at the mortuary. Letter, sahi, quickly, arguing that no one was willing to shoulder the bills. Tuna pesa ya kuenda kumweka kwa morgue. No. See, to go home. Bring him home. They refused to take him to the mortuary, saying that no one was ready to pay. Atuna pesa. Hata kama tukuna pesa, atutatumia. Bury him. The family further insisted that since the deceased never supported them during burials, he did not deserve a traditional send-off. Unlike past funerals where food was prepared and elaborate ceremonies were held, relatives simply wrapped his body in a blanket and buried him the following day without a coffin. As in, he died today, he was buried tomorrow, and not for religious issues. Not for religious issues, where we know that our brothers in the Muslim faith, in the Islam, will bury within 24 hours. It was not for that. This one, they said, Tangulini ametoa pesa hata sumni. Due to No, we're not doing that. Community members expressed mixed reactions. Some condemned the family for denying the man dignity in death, while others said the action reflected his strained ties with relatives. Luo Council of Elders Secretary, there's a secretary, General Odungi Randa, however, defended the burial, saying Luo traditions did not originally require coffins. So you people are here making noise because we did not bury him in a coffin. We never used to bury people in coffins before.
Go back to the history books.
Exactly. So even that one. Traditionally, a person was wrapped in a white linen and buried quickly. There was no keeping bodies in mortuaries or spending lavishly. Even now, it's a chance for us to ask those questions. Why do we do those things? Keep them for months, call people to eat, do paint in Nigeria, even do souvenir. Why?
What do you mean souvenir?
What are you talking about? I do badge, mirror, and I put the picture of
the dead person.
Yes. I do souvenir, plates, baskets, in weddings and funerals. Why?
In the program, yes, but people do souvenirs.
Yes, there's that kabaji that you put here.
Okay, I've seen some people do that.
Yeah.
So now the Luo elders are saying, in fact, perhaps we should bring it back because people.
What's his name again?
His name is Odungi Randa.
Odungi Randa.
And he said, come on, man, he's an mzee. And he said, no, there is no keeping of bodies in mortuaries or spending lavishly. It never used to happen. The incident has reignited debate on the balance between cultural practices and modern expectations, with authorities now probing whether the man's rights were violated by the manner of his burial. So this is interesting because I guess then the debate is serendipitous in nature, whereby we're talking about, did you respect him or not because he was mean, blah, blah, blah. And somebody says, hang on a minute. Perhaps this is how we should be burying people anyway. The person has died. The life is not in the body. Right? They have gone. Their spirit has gone. Bury them and let's move it. This one of calling people, raising I don't know how many million to honor people in death when you do not honor them in life. They're saying.
And you know the worst thing, this topic can actually be very, very controversial because it throws in religion and also culture. And everybody has a belief system. There are certain parts in this country where somebody has died, regardless of age. The body will be kept in a mortuary for 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. Meanwhile, disco matanga, a party is organized at home. People come to say they are pole, but people expect to eat food.
True.
Like you leave your house, you go to mourn with those who are mourning, but you expect them to feed you.
And they're raising money where they don't have the money from.
Yes. To do this. So actually, people come up in committees and they contribute money. So there's a kitty where every day there's milk for tea.
The people who are coming to sit down.
Yeah, there are people who will contribute money so that wageni wakikuja, kuna chai, kuna ugali, kuna mboga.
It's a buffet.
So people actually trickle into a homestead, say their poll and then eat and then go. And then you have mortuary bills to pay. A lot of times you have hospitals bills that you still have to clear. Then you have to again organize an entourage of vehicles. So the one that will carry the body, and then you've got now families that will follow. Then you've got a budget for clothes.
Yeah.
So for the immediate family, you
extended family.
Extended family. You also have to buy. I mean, it's a whole party. I get the point where you want to dignify this person by, giving them what you'd call, quote unquote, especially from where I said it's coming from, a befitting send-off. But at times you look at the cost and you see the reasons for this man being buried without a coffin. It's because he was too stingy, and the stinginess here, he never contributed. Listen, he never contributed to other people's funerals.
That's the reason why they will not contribute to his.
You see, it's a controversial subject, yes, but if you look at even traditional African societies on what used to happen, I was reading a book on how if you were sick and to a point where there is clear evidence that you would not make it, what used to happen is they would take you to the forest and leave you there. You go back to where you came from. So, yeah. It used to happen in the traditional African societies. You're taken to the forest and you're left there for animals to devour you, and you just go back.
Because they don't know what's ailing you, and they don't want you to infect everybody else in the village.
So you're taken to a forest and you're left there. But then again, you look.
This is like centuries ago.
Yes. You know, so you look at that, and then again you come to now religion. Islam, what is considered to be befitting is when you inter these people faster so that they get to rest, because there is a belief that once this person is still here, anasumbuka, anateseka kwa friji, mnafanya nini, all these things. So you inter them faster so that they get to rest. The family as well gets that closure soon. Imagine a situation where you have a body for 3 weeks. This is 3 weeks of torment, agony, and pain for this family. Remember, hospital bills are going up, morgue bills are going up. All this time, others would actually even have bodies for 4 weeks because they're trying to hit the budget that is set there. But what budget are we talking about? Majority of the budget goes to catering.
But why?
It's not even what the family...
Catering, decor, you have to hire tents, you have to hire a PA system, you have to get an MC, you have to bring in a pastor, there has to be a choir, tables have to be arranged, and that burial day, again, there is another feast. What's on kuomboleza? Now on that burial day, there is another feast again before, and then I've witnessed this, and I've attended those burials. The worst part is around 4 p.m. when it's about to rain, and for some strange reason, I don't know why, I've always attended burials when it rains. So around 4 or 5 in the evening, everybody departs. The family is left alone. With just a few, with just a few, very few family members, and that's when the pain starts.
You know, I saw that when my brother was alive, and to date, that thing hurts me and pains me. You know, because my brother just left with a 2-week-old baby, you know, and there is all these expectations and what needs to happen. My view was, even if you're raising this money, let it go towards taking the kids to school.
Exactly.
And I remember I had a big fight with some members of the family on that. Also because, you see, I'm a Muslim. There's a way I view burial and whatnot. But
they wouldn't listen.
It was difficult. Majority wins, but I had my say.
And that's how you know, when it comes to this kind of things, you don't have a say.
You don't have a say.
Their elders will just appear. Their uncles will just appear. They make programs, they make decisions. You are just there, you moan, let us fix. And you can understand they're trying to help. But there are some things... how much does it cost to cremate, by the way? What's the cost?
It's actually cheaper.
It's like 8,000.
How much is it?
It's between 8 and 12,000. Depending on,
Depending on what?
Where you go.
Yeah.
Like here in Nairobi?
Yes.
I think the most you'd spend is like 20K.
Yeah. For everything.
I've never thought about it, but that'll be interesting. Ngugi Thiong'o was cremated.
Yes, he was.
A lot of...
much to the chagrin of his family members, and they didn't like it.
Yeah, they didn't.
By then, it was already done, man.
But then again, let's look at how this man was buried, how much was spent. Because in Islam, all you need to buy is that cotton, you're wrapped in it, and even when it comes to where you're going to be buried and whatnot, especially in a country like Kenya, all you have to pay is the burial permit, the place to dig, to bury, and all that. It's
to be honest, I admire how the people from the Islamic faith do it.
I remember my friend, we spent close to 12,000 bob and we were done. We're done because he died today. Kesho, we buried him, and that was it.
Which is, in my opinion, that's how it should be.
But my brother went down with close to $500,000.
Those are bills.
Bills.
Imagine.
Oh my
God. That's catering. For me, it's catering.
This could actually be a whole conversation for us to have, and perhaps we need to look into how tradition actually is tradition or expectation is actually creepy and not creepy, has created a position front and center of how we do things today. And maybe we don't actually think because we say, but that's how we do things, without applying thought to it. No, it can actually be different. It's a conversation for us to have. Let's look at one more story before we come to the end. Aseto?
So there is this Tanzanian woman, and for the past 17 years, the Nakuru Teaching and Referral Hospital has been more than a medical facility for Tanzanian national Selina Paul. It has been the only home she has known for nearly 2 decades. Selina was admitted at the facility in March 2008 after being diagnosed with schizophrenia. She was 36, vulnerable, confused, and far away from home. Her temporary admission turned into years in the psychiatric ward. Even after her condition improved, the hospital could not discharge her. With no name, no address, and no known family, Selina became an unintentional resident of the hospital. On Tuesday, however, the now 53-year-old finally stepped out of hospital, but not as a patient. She has fully recovered and is ready to return home. Selina's family, which the hospital had tried to reach in vain, had finally been located in Dar es Salaam. The reunion was emotional. Her elder brother, Filippo Paulo Ombaye, who traveled from Tanzania on August 24th, said the hospital notified them 2 weeks ago that Selina had been admitted there. Ombaye was overcome with emotion as he embraced his sister. The family, he said, had been searching for her all this time, at times losing hope, forever finding her. Now, her son, with whom she was admitted when he was just 6 months old, is now a Form 4 candidate, and the family back home has organized a feast to welcome back their sister.
Wow.
The family king.
How about that? Brings into consideration the mental health story. I mean, we look at these and there's just many conversations to be had, isn't it? How serious are we taking the mental health conversation? So I thought that maybe the last one that we could look at in seconds really is that MCAs in Nairobi have decided that they want to what? They want to impeach the governor of Nairobi
and the deputy together.
Together. What? Two piece. Arthur Johnson Sakaja, they seem to have an issue with him, and they're saying what? They're saying I think it's 70 is the number so far that have come together and say that they want to impeach the governor. Really quickly looking into those, a political storm is in the making at City Hall after members of the Nairobi County Assembly yesterday resolved to initiate impeachment proceedings against Governor Johnson Sakaja and his deputy James Muchiri. This was the culmination of a charged 2-hour meeting, of a charged 2-hour meeting at the Assembly attended by 96 of the 122 MCAs, including Speaker Ken Gondi, Majority Leader Peter Imotok, Minority Whip Mark Mugambi, and Deputy Minority Whip Waithera Shege. So they've decided, we have agreed, and they were in the majority, and they decided this is the direction that we are going. So let's see what happens. But for now, good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. World 94.4.
Newswire, I'm Leah Ubaga. Kenyans today mark the first Katiba Day after President William Ruth on Monday declared August 27 to be officially observed as Katiba Day, marking the anniversary of Kenya's 2010 Constitution. This year will be the first time the day will be celebrated, as the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was promulgated on August 2010, ushering in a new era of citizen-centered governance, devolution, protection of rights, and a vision for an equitable and prosperous nation. The head of state explained that Katiba Day will be observed across the country and in all Kenyan missions abroad. Ruto clarified that the day will remain a working day, but government institutions, schools, and all arms of government will be required to organize and take part in civic activities. An accountant of the Sia County government, Hezron Junior Opio, alias Hezron Opio, is set to be arraigned before the Kisumu Anti-Corruption Court today after he was arrested by the EACC for allegedly embezzling approximately 100 million through payment of fraudulent and fictitious allowances. Investigations by the commission revealed that Opio, an accountant at the Department of Finance and Economic Planning, fraudulently processed payments disguised as allowances for training and other official county engagements that never took place. EACC said the investigations follows a complaint into alleged embezzlement of approximately 400 million by several Sia County officials. Now, the commission is also investigating 7 other cases relating to allegations of fraudulent payment of allowances to Sia County officials, totaling to over 700 million Kenya shillings, which were paid between 2017 and 2022. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says that he did not call the people of Mandera terrorists, as all he said is that President William Ruto held a meeting with Al-Shabaab in the area. Speaking during a local TV interview, Gachagua warned Ruto's allies against tarnishing his name to the people from the community.
Put very clearly that after I asked William Ruto to explain about the alleged meeting he did in Mandera with Al-Shabaab, some leaders in that area, the governor, the senator, and some MPs, were accusing me of having called the people of Mandera terrorists. Let me say very clearly, the people of Mandera are very innocent, and they have nothing to do with these accusations. The accusations are against William Ruto, not the people of Mandera. The fact that the meeting is alleged to have taken place in Mandera does not make the people of Mandera party to any such meeting. And I have seen a concerted effort to try to draw a wedge between me and the people of Mandera and the people of northeastern Kenya. And let me take this opportunity to say that I have tremendous respect for that community. Those are very honorable people. And myself, I do business with people in the Somali community.
Gachagua further refuted claims that he is not out for revengeance against President William Ruto, but instead informed Kenyans the truth about his leadership qualities.
I don't think saying there should be no extrajudicial killings is revenge. I think is humanity. I don't think stopping corruption is revenge. I think is morality. I don't think stopping capturing of independent institutions is revenge. I think is good governance. I am not interested in any revenge. I am interested in good governance. I'm interested in having a country that is working. I'm interested in having a happy population. I'm interested in having people going to hospital and getting drugs. I'm interested in having a country where children can access education. I don't think those things are anything to do with revenge. All I am saying is that for us that to happen, this man needs to exit.
And finally, Kenya will host the 2026 World Health Summit regional meeting, which will bring together over 2,000 global health leaders, policymakers, innovators and researchers. The announcement was made during a facility tour by the Aga Khan University at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, the official venue of the summit. The meeting is scheduled to take place from April 27th to 29th next year under the theme Re-Imaging Africa's Health Systems, Innovation, Integration and Interdependence. The summit underscores Kenya's rising profile as a preferred meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions destination, and highlights the role of conference tourism as one of the fastest growing global subsectors valued at billions of dollars annually. Just a reminder is that our radio stations Berur, Radio Maisha and SpiceFM will be bringing to you live the EPL marches. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubanga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice.
When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning, and it is now 7 minutes after 7 on this 27th of August. Happy Katiba Day, and Kenya's biggest conversation, this Situation Room with Dennis Ndu, and Dennis gets into it this morning. And as we continue with conversations, let me get you to focus on wealth protection. Let me get you to focus on decision support and to focus on portfolio management, where we also ask ourselves, you know what keeps a lot of people up at night? It's the idea that everything they've built could be lost, whether it's through poor advice or market downturns. That's why wealth preservation and risk management are key pillars at Standard Chartered Priority Banking. Their expert teams don't just guide you, they protect your assets from market fluctuations, economic shocks, and unexpected risks. Add to that their specialized investment advice and portfolio management, and you've got a recipe for building sustainable long-term wealth. And for those overwhelmed by endless options, from real estate to international investments, you get expert help to optimize decision-making. It's not just about growing wealth, it's about growing wisely and with clarity. Your path to smart, protected, and informed wealth starts with one email: wealth.ke@sc.com. Now is your time. Like I said, happy Katiba Day, and welcome to the conversation that we'll be having this hour. And we're looking at if things have changed, and we're looking at whether they remain the same or what direction that we are going into. Joining us this morning for the conversation is the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, and that is Jeremiah Kioni. He joins us this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Kama wa Kenya tu, tunapambana, tunaamuka. We wake up and sleep. But we thank God we arrive.
Indeed.
And the struggle continues.
I have to say, I love your color combinations this morning. You've done a good job with the red and the blues, and the reds. The rest we
Najua red ni Jubilee.
It's a power color.
Then he's also sporting some red
shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we'll ask him later how much they cost.
Yeah, too. We'll also ask you your glasses.
Yeah.
You have a red outfit.
The odd one out, but he has something red also. Yeah.
Sour. Okay. We're getting into it morning, and the man with the red cup also went to Seychelles, and he's coming back with Proverbs, Jeremiah. And we'd love to hear what your interpretation of it is.
All right.
Yeah, so Seychelles, a country whose economy is run by tourism because they have beautiful sandy beaches next to Kwale. Kwale was voted the best tourist city with white beaches.
Oh, I thought you were saying there's the Kwale in Seychelles.
But he also sold the Murima Hills.
The Murima Hills. Okay. Yeah, but then again, if you talk about the economy as well, our fisheries is big, especially the tuna fish. They fish a lot of that and sell. But let's go to the proverb today. Strike when the iron is hot. Strike when the iron is hot. How would you interpret that?
I think that is what Gachagua is doing. You deal with things when it's the right time. Strike when the iron is hot. He's still striking it. It's very hot and it's nice for him. Yeah. I think it's dealing with the issues when they should be dealt with, without wishing them away or procrastination. Yes, avoid procrastination.
Seizing the opportunity.
Yes, when it is available.
When it's available.
Yes.
Well put, well said.
And I think that is also being done by those in power. They are seizing the opportunity to seize us to the maximum possible. I've just talked about Murima Hills. You talked about Kwale. You should find out what is in the Murima Hills. And who is going to Australia to sign a contract in the month of November, because it's already sold because of its rare earth qualities.
Oh, here we go.
That's a debate for another day.
Well, it could be the debate for today. Well, we'll get into it because essentially we're talking about constitutionalism and we're looking at Katiba 15.
He's decided to strike there.
Strike while the iron is hot.
Yes,
when it's hot. Yes.
Well, so let's get into it, shall we? Because we're looking into this conversation, Jeremiah, and even as we do, there are certain things that we must ask. 15 years after the promulgation of the Constitution over Uhuru Park, and we talk about this, it was 27th August 2010. And when the big flag was hoisted, there was expectation in the air that there would be a law now that had changed things a little bit, and that Kenya would then be operating under a different dispensation. From where you sit, 2025, on this day, do you see that dream has become a reality?
On the 26th of August 2010.
26th, yeah.
I remember I went myself and another, Drito Murithi, and I think Abdulkadir Mohammed, who was chairing the Constitutional, the Parliamentary Select Committee on the Constitution, PSC. We went over to the office of the President. And
the day before promulgation.
The day before, and the big question that was there was, now that we have done all that needed to be done, and I think it's good to commend people like Martha Karua, because Martha Karua is one of the champions, or the person who was able to get the constitution pathway, what we needed to do, when and after what, which had been a problem there before. I remember that day we woke up and went to the office of the President, and the question was, now tomorrow we are giving ourselves a new constitution. What role do we play? Tumekuwa tukifanya kampeni kubwa kuyuza, and now we can see that the big day is coming, and we found like we had no role. That is the nature of politics. And again, we also had now the Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga, whom we also didn't know which role he was going to play in that whole process. We had Parliament that we also wanted to find out what were they going to do come the following day. And one of the very interesting things that we were told by, I think that time it was called Kehara, just as a way of dealing with the first issues. They said Mzee Kibaki and Mudaura are seated in State House, and when they come out, they will give us the way forward. And nobody had answers. And sure to it, they came out at around 5. And by 9 o'clock in the night, 10 o'clock, they knew what they needed to do the following day. And we were in all system go. Why? Because there was a point at which, when you are moving from the old constitution to the new constitution, where we were not sure who was in charge. And that woman needed to have been managed very nicely. And that's another story we can tell another day. Dennis is here to do the investigative journalism. Here at our vizuri. And you can look at the pictures at Uhuru Park. A little bit of jostling, elbowing to ensure that you remember after the constitution, Raila had now to be given to sign like he was being a contract. Very interesting transition of things. But we are here 15 years later, and while we have a lot that we can complain about, and we should complain about, we are disappointed about, I think it's also good to take cognizance of the fact that a lot has been achieved. If it wasn't for the 2010 Constitution, with the kind of executive that we have today, we would be doing very, very, very badly, worse off than we are doing today.
So you're saying that the Constitution served as a buffer?
It does, because this issue of the sovereign power of the people, sovereign power belongs to the people. You may take it like it is kitu tu imeandikwa, but the fact that Kenyans became aware that actually they have power over their leaders, that was not there before. During Moi's time and even Kibaki's time, ilikuwa ukiona mtu ya serikali na crown ama gari imepita na GK unagonga kwa kichaka if you're in the rural areas. But people, that has helped Kenyans to say no to some things. When you are being arrested, you say why. You know, we have not been able to deal with the corruption the way we should have dealt with it, even when we are aware of that power. But it is something that we must celebrate and perhaps continue helping Kenyans understand how to make use of that provision. But also, those of us who are there under the old constitution, we know there was no separation of power. The president was the one in charge of the judiciary, in charge of executive, running parliament. Parliament was being run like a section, not even a department within the office of the president. That we can see separation of power as whether we have achieved what we wanted. No doubt we are far from it. We have the 5, that time, those days ilikuwa uingia ofisi alafu Mwenyezi Mungu ndio atakutoa pale pengine ukikufa. But we now are certain that after every 5 years, Kenyans have an opportunity to go back and decide whether to go on with the same mess or get themselves out of it. I've mentioned the judiciary and all those other issues. We have the issues of devolution is another major achievement under the new constitution. As to whether the money that we give, over 400 billion shillings that go into the counties, is it being used for what we intended to do? Another big question. I would say no. We may have failed on the issue of accountability and perhaps ensuring that the resources that went to the counties, we can be able to account for them. I am happy that we also have the economic rights in the constitution. That was not there before. Right to education, health, shelter, all these things. The fact that, again, are we celebrating them the way, or are we making progress like we should have done? Somebody will say so in housing, but again, we can see how it has been, that right has been used by those in power to get us poorer. The rights to expression, association, and all the rest, media houses, I mean, if it was Kanu's day, hii amuka naye leo, ungekuwa umeenda bali sana hii. So and we must celebrate you, the Standard Group. You have done us proud. You are almost the only media house that has kept us. We wake up to look at your headlines. Umesema nini? Not because we are very happy when we hear that Kenya is it's a scandalous country or it's a crime scene, but it's being reported that that's a way of oversighting. And we know it comes with a cost to it. Yeah. You will suffer, but I hope one day it will pay. It is already paying. So a couple of things that we can continue talking about. So it's 15 years later, a couple of things that we can be happy about. Many other issues that also required to have been handled better, but the issue of representation is still something that we fear. We had thought that by this time we would have, more, would have dealt with the unequal levels of representation within our institution and especially within Parliament. That is still out there and pending. The commissions, we had many constitutional commission, which was also supposed to have been another major achievement for us as a country. But those who have been charged with the responsibility of running those commissions are the ones who've failed us, because they have failed to exert the authority that has been given to them by the constitution.
Which commissions are we talking
Parliament
about?
Also failed and has continued to fail. I was part of it and I tried what I could. Maybe I should have done better also. But one of the things that made the Constitution Commissions weak is the fact that while we provided very nicely for them in the Constitution, the oversighting was not made as clear as it should be. We should have created specific committees in Parliament, and I know I put that motion and even those provisions in when I was the chairman of CIOC. We needed them to be oversighted by a committee in Parliament that was not under the departmental committees. Because if you do not have independence of your budget, it becomes very difficult for you to execute.
And was this for the express reason of the implementation of the Constitution? You needed a committee for that?
If you, the committees exist, CIOC exists. And the work of CIOC is perhaps to ensure that the Constitution continues being implemented and the ideals that were, we continue benefiting from what the ideals were from the beginning. But that's also
so you needed an external body to ensure that these other committees were working?
You see, we have, for example, when you talk about IEBC, IEBC is oversighted by the Legal Affairs Committee.
Yes.
It is the same committee that has the AG's office and all the other. So when they are robbing for money, you do not rob money for IEBC. The IEBC money is robbed at the ministry. I think IEBC is a little better. I should have used something like maybe POA. That the money is released, the vote is released under the same ministry. And the original problem was that we needed to get these commissions away from the executive, control of the executive, so that they can be able to address the issues of Kenyans better. But what happened is that slowly, every person who's come into the executive has made every attempt to put them under the ministry, under the PS or under the CS, under the PS. And that has denied Kenyans of perhaps gains that we should have seen. Maybe if we had been able to provide better for the IPOA, not that I blame that aspect alone. Perhaps the killings that we saw by police officers may have been reduced substantially. But
on that note, before we leave IPOA, because we had yesterday Charles Njeri, former CIC chairperson, and he said at the time when this constitution was being drafted, it was in response to a situation that we had had as a country. 2007, 2008 and everything else that happened. And a lot of it had to do with security. There's the political angle to this. But when then the framers were coming up with institutions that were quote-unquote independent, like now the National Police Service being oversighted by IPOA. So the IPOA was established. But what then the Constitution failed to do was to then come up with mechanisms for enforcing accountability, because that is what we also lacked then in reacting to the situation we had, was where we had police officers being used by, at the time, those who were in power, and we didn't have accountability. So now you're setting up an independent oversight body to oversight the police. But then there was failure to come up with mechanisms or instruments for enforcing accountability, so that now we don't have issues like extrajudicial killings, we don't have issues like abductions, and even from the police side, police welfare and police reforms, and we've seen this tug of war between the IG and the National Police Service Commission and all that. Why was that left out? Because we see these across even Parliament, the role of the Senate and the role of the National Assembly. We see these theme cutting across different parts of the Constitution. Why was it not considered, or there was not enough reflection on this?
I think one is that when this constitution making process, and I'm sure you must have played a bit of it in it, there was a lot of issues that were competing for one attention, two issues that needed to be addressed, and then there were too many bodies that were pushing for different perspectives, and to get a balance of it was not easy. The fact that we got out with something 2010 was commendable. The other thing that we also got out of it was that Nyashai Commission, and that is an aspect where we actually failed to address. Those issues that needed to have been perhaps addressed then with a clarity may have been clear to a few people, but majority of others were not as clear in their minds in the way to handle them. So they overpowered or they overwhelmed, they outvoted those few who may have seen this to the end. And the Njeri Commission, which was also mishandled, and I don't know whether Njeri bears any blame for it. I am unable to say no. Should have been allowed time, a minimum of 10 years, because there was room to extend their tenure, so that these gaps that are now clear, like the issue, the way IPOA was crafted and the provisions that were done for the National Police Service, those are areas that needed to have been tidied up. And again, you have brought out the issue of the Senate. Again, another area that needed to have been tidied up with people who had a history of how did we end up with this provision in the Constitution. But you have talked about, when I was out here, I just remember that when we left Naivasha with the notion that even the issues of women's seats were supposed to have been a sunset clause. So there was quite a bit of tidying up that needed to have been done, but we did not manage the transition of all. There were other clauses that needed to have been listed after 10 years. But when time for renewing the tenure for Njeri's commission came, it was not handled well. I don't know whether Njeri had injured or scared too many people. There wasn't enough energy in Parliament to renew the tenure. It was collapsed quickly. And then what those in Parliament said then was that the CIOC was supposed to take over this exercise. The Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee of Parliament was supposed to take over. But again, then the Speaker of the National Assembly then, after they were supposed to do what Njeri was doing, that committee was also collapsed in Parliament, but just being made redundant. And perhaps those who were in it also did not quite get the momentum. So I accept there are many areas that needed to have been provided, and there are still gaps that are yearning for, and including the issue of how we manage the resources. Treasury, I don't think that is we intended to devolve and then leave the management of our kitty with the national government. We should have perhaps taken it to a more neutral arbiter. So there are quite a number of things, quite a number of areas that requires to be addressed. As to whether we will have the courage to do so, I see those attempts being done. It was made through the BBI. But again, that didn't come through. We were there in the Nandiko. You could still see some attempts being made to address some of the shortcomings. But again, you can see when addressing one, there is always an attempt to almost claw back the gains from the Constitution.
Courage is a byproduct of will. In some cases, it can be. It can be a byproduct of will. That if I have the desire to do something, that along the way I can pick up the courage, I can pick up the wherewithal and all of these things to then push, because it's all coming from a place where I have that absolute desire to ensure that this thing has actually been done. Do we see then that there is actually a desire? Is there a will to have some of these things put in place? Because, for example, members of parliament can be recalled by the people who put them there in the first place. According to this constitution that was promulgated in 2010, it is allowed for. However, some of the things that we see, because of the constitution, parliament then comes in to then make laws that will now bring this constitution to life. That's the way it was envisioned. That's the way it's supposed to be. But then there are certain things that then are not allowed to happen along the way. Is this not then a direct contravention of this constitution that is supposed to be one and for all?
You know, this constitution that we have is a really negotiated document. And it was negotiated under very tough circumstances. And this constitution also needed, because of the previous constitution, it also needed to be passed by the same parliament. And remember, this constitution, new constitution that is supposed to be passed by parliament, is taking away some powers from the parliamentarians who are supposed to implementing. It is introducing accountability issues to members of parliament who are supposed to pass it. So that became another very difficult phase of the constitution. And one of the things you've mentioned was the recall clause, which had been campaigned for, but Kenyans themselves had clamored for that. How do we recall these members of parliament who go there and insult us? They do the things we never wanted them to do, and and it's happening now, perhaps now than even before, because the kind of things I've seen with this parliament was not there during Moi's time, and that clause was meant to deal with that kind of behavior. But what happened when I was in that parliament? What happened is that when that was brought, the question that we had when we were at Naivasha is, hii kitu umeandika hapa ya kwamba ati raia wanaweza toa bunge mumeandika namna hiyo na mnataka niende nipitishe nikiwa bunge. Sitapitisha hii nitaangusha hii katiba yote kwa sababu ya hii provision. That was the thing. Members of parliament, I'm talking from, but members of parliament were going to bring down the whole constitution just because you said you are going to recall them. So what did we say? We said, right to recall, but parliament will make laws or regulations. Will provide an enabling
framework,
statute for that to happen. And those of us who perhaps had an understanding of what we were saying, or what we were doing was, yes, wapelekee watatengeneza sheria, which we did, that will make it impossible to be recalled. So one of the things we said when you were in parliament is you cannot recall unless after 2.5 years. You cannot be the one initiating the recall if you are running against me. You cannot run if you are the one who initiated recall. Some very, very clauses that were very sweet to those of us who are making, but making it almost impossible for the recall clause to be ever used or implemented. But we also knew.
You did this intentionally.
We also knew, some of us knew, that if we allow the judiciary to function independently, this act that we have passed will be unconstitutional.
Jeremiah, are you saying
just
that
a minute.
Intentionally?
Let me. I think history will help you, or will help those who are coming after us to know how to deal with some of these things. There was no way the constitution was going to pass in parliament with that recall clause. So we were going to lose all these other things just because of that recall. So it requires a little bit of imagination, and Kinaonengo and the late Mutura Kironzo were there to guide, and it was clear to us that members of parliament will pass a law that will protect them against this. But if the judiciary sits and does what is expected of them, they will do away with that act and call for a better act, which is where we are today. That act was declared unconstitutional. What Parliament has also not done, because there has not been enough pressure, was now to enact another law that will pass the constitutional threshold. Now that is what you heard Wetangula saying, they have not slept over that. The civil society needs to be very vigilant. And now Kenyans, because they now very vigilant on that provision, and of course the court also will help because they declared some specific clauses and constitution that was making it difficult.
But Jeremiah, you speak as though you were what was done at that time.
I'll tell you something more.
It's as though somebody took a walk to town, and this is actually a little bit more heavy than with what you're giving.
I'll tell you another clause.
Sorry, Jeremiah, you're telling us very nonchalantly now that we essentially sat in Parliament some years ago and decided that there would never be an opportunity for anybody to recall. Based on what you said, there would not be an opportunity, or you wouldn't make it easy for anybody to recall a member of Parliament, and you also knew that you had to essentially limit the powers of the judiciary to do this.
I'll tell you something else that was done.
You did this at the time.
As you sit in judgment.
And why is that okay?
As you sit in judgment, you'll appreciate what sacrifices were also there. There's also the issue of the CDF. The constitution, this you have seen, now we call it the NGCF. And I've never bothered to call it NGCF because I understand where we are coming from. CDF was left in the constitution by the very serious constitutional lawyers and for the same reason that if you take away CDF from these members of parliament and you want them to pass the document will not pass. Can we be able to pass what we can pass now? Keep this here, it will be challenged in court. Eventually the court will declare it unconstitutional, which has happened. And the members of parliament have sat there believing that they can pass an amendment to get back the constitution, including some very senior council the members. And we see they even did an amendment on the floor. But those of us who can recall, we clearly know that unless you have a referendum on that issue, it will never be constitutional. And two, unless you change the form of governance, you will not get CDF with the members of parliament. Some of that statement I've made now was almost impossible to make 15 years ago.
Jeremiah, I hear you
and
speak.
I can tell you this, because allow me to just speak more. Even now, 95% of members of parliament have not woken up to this reality. I'll tell you another one that is waiting for us to get into a crisis. The issues of boundaries. I've seen people dealing with these issues. Those who understand, and especially those who've been in the IBC, they know how difficult it will be to deal with the issues of boundaries. But it will require what you have just talked about, character. Why? Today, as we speak here, members of parliament have no role in the delimitation of boundaries. But all those who are seated in parliament today will claim that they are the ones who have a role as to where the boundary of a constituency should pass. Why was that denied to members of parliament? Because it was clear. If you allow members of parliament to have a say in the boundary delimitation process, nitakata tu kulingana na vile nitashida. So they have no role. But what the amendments that I've seen coming to the floor are amendments that were supposed to claw back and give them a role in the democratic process. But again, that was done, and it is not something that they will read and know that easily. Because again, kama ni kitu together na we give them that civic education, then hiyo katiba ingepita. So a little bit of making it difficult perhaps for myself by letting you into some of the debates that we had at Naivasha.
We're going to come back to that in just a minute, but Dennis has a question. Let's get to that.
Yep. I hear you speak in terms of the constitution that 2010 that was there, and you look at even the appointment of the Inspector General of Police and how it was supposed to be pushed mostly by the commission, but that an act was put in Parliament to give the President powers to now appoint the Inspector General. And you talk of the political class doing everything to retain power and ensuring that the Constitution 2010 does not perform as envisioned by the drafters and by Kenyans who voted to have this Constitution. Which brings me to the question, is the political class in this country the reason why we are where we are with the problems that we experience as Kenyans?
A lot of it, no. But let me put it this way. Let me also grow your argument a little. Remember, why we were clamoring for a new constitution is because we were taking that control, not just political control, but literally the control of our lives from the hands of politicians, and more from the hands of the executive. And remember, those days you would elect members of parliament and they would quickly learn and sit in the executive, and then they would roll over you. So when you see them even trying to claw back, it is the same game. It is upon us and civil society, perhaps, I don't know whether members of parliament, a few of them who will understand where it is, who have to resist the clawing back. But there is so much comfort in the executive that members are unable to resist. How is it that this current parliament, and not this one, even the previous ones, even the ones we have served in, we have always gravitated back towards where there is money? That is why perhaps also we were talking about the issue of treasury. Did we cushion it enough, or did we leave it again totally at the mercy of the executive? Should we have removed it a little bit from the executive so that this pull towards the executive is reduced? So the political class will never sit to take away power from itself. And the civil society, the Kenyans themselves must continue. And it's one other thing that didn't happen 2010. Mm-hmm. And this again came about because of things that perhaps we don't have time to talk about. There was the call for civic education. We have a new document, 2010 Constitution, that provides for such enormous power to the people. Mm-hmm. That power they should have used to ask more for more, or to get what was left hanging dealt with. But that didn't happen. And that's why today we still have Kenyans who don't quite understand, not that the ones who were there 2010, of course we have a new generation, but civic education has never been part of what the executive will do. If we had civic education, for example, and I say this I am not sure that I want to say it, but I will say it because I started saying it. But I hope nobody misinterprets it. If we had civic education, we would actually understand what being impeached under our 2010 Constitution means. And we will not be seeing governors or even other people trying to run around and saying that they can run. Once impeached, the Constitution, if Kenyans have been educated well, they will, once impeached, you are actually being told you cannot start galvanizing people behind you because you are only going to mislead them, taking them where? The Constitution has declared you as unfit to ever hold a public office or even lead people into any given direction. So some of this civic education was not given to us, and including myself, there are many articles in the Constitution that I continue understanding every time perhaps it's taken to the
There's a lot of work
court.
To be done, isn't it?
And but there is more work to be done by the civil society, because you never expect the executive to do this, and it is also not something that is a one-off thing. So let me say this so that you don't, it goes into the record, that it's not that members of parliament sat it's not that politicians sat to take it away from Kenyans, but it is in the nature of people, and that's why we were saying, where we thought that we needed to a buy-in from members of parliament who are sitting, you then say this particular clause does not come into effect until after X number of years, so that you allow this person who is giving you a good law to also serve for his term, because nobody will sit there and sack himself. Okay. So that is the basis upon which some of those clauses were negotiated. Surely. And they needed to have been passed. And remember also we had the executive, and the executive also needed to be cushioned. At one point, we were actually required, and this was again at the consternation of Michuki. In that constitution, the only person it mentioned in name was Kibaki. And Kibaki being the Kibaki who was not, after doing anything that perhaps we didn't like, he said, I have no problem, but others were saying, why are you putting his name there? Because we were saying, we don't want to leave any doubt that he is not going to run again. You remember we did 2A 1992 and then Moi ran for 10 years. He said, yes, 2A umetoa, lakini sasa hata mimi ni Mkenya ninaanza kuhesabiwa leo. Hawezi kuniwekea sheria ya jana. So he ran us out for another 10 years. But we thought we had finished with Moi in 1992. So when it came to the issues of the constitution, there are clauses we put, and Kibaki's name was mentioned there.
Okay, I have to.
What am I saying is, allow me to just say, because the executive also, we had to get in a lot of buy-in. Where is the problem? The problem is those of us who came after the buying in. And this is where we messed again by sending Nyashai home, Nyashai Commission home. Because it is the commission that had teeth to then bring back some of these areas that needed, were gaps.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying, Jeremiah, but then it does cause a bit of...
And as you do this, don't blame me.
Of course, look, as you are here, then you would then serve as the representative. But the thing is that, by your own admission, Today, if we should look to Parliament and say that there are things that you must be doing, you talk about the commission, the committees of Parliament then being the ones that give life to certain aspects of the Constitution by their law-making nature.
Yes.
But we are coming from a place where 10 years ago, the same Parliament, by your own admission, had made laws to protect themselves first.
Yeah.
Remembering that these individuals are supposed to be representatives of the people, but you go in to make laws that protect yourselves. We also see that an executive then is not being held to account by Parliament, also because of things that were removed from a Bomas draft. How do we expect a Parliament of today, to ensure that the Constitution continues being given life if 10 years ago you ensured that members of Parliament, for example, could not be touched? We are looking at an IEBC today who is telling us that we don't have enough laws to bring about the recall clause for members of Parliament. But that was done clearly by what you've told us 10 years ago. So it's like you're running against the current. It can't work. And it's very clear that was done at your time. How do we remove that today?
If we had Kenyans electing people who had character, those things would be done.
If there were people with character who were putting themselves up for election, perhaps it would be different.
If we had Kenyans who elected people of character, that will not be done.
So are you saying that sorry, Jeremiah, are you saying that then people who were in Parliament at the time who did the things that you are saying then were not individuals of character?
They had character because that's something we had struggled for almost 30 years, but they had the character and the presence of the mind that required some things to be done for us to get a new constitution. You will never take that away from them. And I tell you, those are people who should be celebrated. But thereafter, we seems, including Kenyans, we seem not to have been it's like we quite didn't understand. When you hear that, I think it is, again, I want to say that it is really, I wanted to say, yesterday I attended a church service at Gatundu, burial of an elderly lady who passed on. And put it to the family. And the Mchungaji, the minister, said that he read a place in a book. He could not remember the name of the book or the author, but he could remember he read it in the book. He said, leaders are a reflection of the people who elect them. And he was saying that, I don't know what he eventually wanted to say, but this is a bit. We Kenyans have to decide to elect people who can stand for something, even if it's not provided for in the law. For example, if you then say that we are going to amend this constitution, like now you can run I can make a promise, which is not, let me make one ridiculous thing, that I'm going to allow for public execution. I know Dennis will hit me hard for this. Public execution for anybody who steals public money.
Actually,
people would agree. Come on,
bring it today.
I would want to run on that thing, but then it requires character for you to get Kenyans to pass that law, because it is not you. It is your work is to put it on to ensure that they pass it, and you use the proper channel to pass it. Some of us are really disappointed. I am personally disappointed because I may have read a lot of hope on individuals who let us down along the way. But it requires character. This is the bit I'm talking about. It requires character. I honestly would want to put public execution for people who steal our money. But that also requires us to amend the issue, one article in the rights, fundamental rights. And you see the whole world up against us because they say there is, you can, if we even almost took away the death sentence from our laws. So it requires character. And that is what Kenyans must look for. Where we are today, it requires character. Where's the Kini? Yeah, so I think I leave it that.
But if it requires character, and let's assume that's what majority of Kenyans want, and I'm sure if you were to do a poll right here and ask Kenyans this morning, how many of you would vote for a law to execute anyone who steals public funds? I'm almost guaranteed we'll get over 90%. But this thing still has to go through the same parliament that you've given us a very good history that once it looks at all these things, they will shoot anything down that is not reflective of their interests.
I agree with you, Dennis, but let me ask you, and I ask this not because I want to know where you come from, but which is your constituency? Give me any fictitious one.
Let's say
Kajiado constituency.
East.
Or west or south, southwest. Could be Kajiado southwest. It is your responsibility, Dennis, to ensure that in Kajiado southwest, you bring a man of character or a woman of character. If we have enough of them, that which we promise to Kenyans, we will deliver. But if it is a question of fake promises and people who can stand and lie in front of you na unaona tu mu ni muongo na hapo Wakenya wanampigia kura, and now you can see the circus we are in today, where we are talking of one term. Some of us, we are talking of one term, and one term is a representative of that whole bunch of people who lied to us and have continued to steal our money. I am not here to tell you that I am certain we are not going to produce another one term.
Jeremiah,
if you look at the way people are behaving, and you even talk to the young people and ask him, why are you following X person who is known for all these cadres and the rest? And I am not innocent either. But the person says, siniu anaongea sana. I mean, we are going to from one term to another one term until we all have exited this one. The thing is this: the character of the individuals who are elected, the process of vetting, and whether IBC wants to run away from this or not. IBC is one body that has had people who lacked character. When they are out, there is a tribunal that is supposed to be set up by IBC to vet those of us who offer themselves to run. What did they say? They were in a hurry to run away from that tribunal. And through it, we have gotten all the kind of people we have, all the kinds of people we have today, who then sit in parliament, and it's a question of not just self-preservation, it's a question of how much can I get home with. It does not matter. I'll tell you what I told a young person the other day, 2 weeks ago, and I felt very sad. One is a person I have hope for, because I see potential in that person. But then I said, when you're getting home, I am going home now, but I have some 2-3 kilometers that I need to deal with, ya matope. This young person yakaniuliza, umekuwa bunge hiyo miaka yote na hujaweka rami kwako. Now, you see that mindset. And it's a very innocent mindset. I should have done, perhaps. But then you say, at least it's 3 kilometers to my house. There is another person who is doing 20. So I would have used the 5 kilometers that would have brought the other 20 near person nearer, and kuweka kwangu mpaka nyumbani. So while that, and that is the yardstick that is used by Kenyans. Wewe ulikuwa mjinga kiasi gani haukujifanyia hii mambo yote? Ulikuwa mjinga kiasi gani ya kwamba wewe ni fukara baada ya kuwa bugeni? So there is a whole thing that requires something beyond what we can discuss about here. When you talk about the Gen Zs, and pick them. This is a Gen Z person I was talking to. And I respectfully and I'll go back and apologize for having used this as an example, because I know I'm in for roasting. But it just hits you and you say, oh God, how are you going to get into this? Because this is, and let me use this narrative of Mheshimiwa Gachagua, whom I give credit for having worked on Ruto. He understands him better than any of us, and I don't think any of us in the opposition who have done what he has done. When he talks about the shareholding principle, and I listened to him last night, I sympathize with him because he has gotten confused between what you'd call one man, one vote, one sharing principle to a shareholding thing. So he interprets it in a manner that is so repulsive to people. But when he was able to explain it like one man, one vote, where you are saying every Kenyan comes before the law as equal, and you come before the country's economic pocket as equal. Pata yako ni pata yangu, usichukue yangu nisichukue yako. You see, there is quite a bit of work that needs to be done. Na mimi sisemi nilikuja hapa ku
Jeremiah, let's look at the Constitution 2010, 15 years later. So we look at the Bill of Rights, right to life, right to education, right to health. We look at all these where we sit today, and one would say we've actually gone back to where we were, even worse than how we were before the Constitution 2010, because Kenyans have been given the power. They go to the streets to express themselves. They are shot dead. We talk about the taxes that Kenyans painfully remove every other day, and that is being looted dry. Talk about healthcare. It is worse than how it was even during NHIF days. We talk about education capitation. Yesterday, students went back to school, and parents are being told, serikali bado haijatuma pesa. If you look at what the Constitution provided in terms of all these rights being given to Kenyans, how would you rate the situation today, and what will it take for us to go back?
Terrible, and I'll tell you why. 2024, the month of June 25th, Kenyans, led by Gen Z, came out and said no to Parliament. They were shot outside Parliament. In fact, the people who were shooting them were within Parliament. Something that is very difficult to comprehend. You are being shot from the institution that you put in place to represent your views, and you are going to take your views to them, and they kill you. And Kenyans react the proper way and said, hatutaki hawa wabunge kuja mbele yetu tena. And for a period of time, for about 3-4 months, no member of parliament would dare leave Nairobi, or even no cabinet minister would dare fly the flag. The issue of impeachment of Gachagua comes. And the same members of parliament who voted for this finance bill, and I'm giving it as an example, who voted for this finance bill, become the heroes. And they are the ones now to show us where to go. So the Kenyans have forgotten the Lex Masai, who was killed because these members of parliament passed a finance bill which we all had rejected. So would you blame the members of parliament or the Kenyans who were given that right by the Constitution and has failed to exercise it? It will take more than members of parliament or the character of members of parliament for this country to change. If Kenyans had maintained that was a paradigm shift. When we were in parliament, we also failed the test. I remember, and I use this respectively again. No, let me not use the name because Wakili Anazan is stuck. But there's a lawyer who was supposed to have taken over the chairmanship of EACC then. He was supposed to have been the first one. Celebrated because he really fought for the 2010 constitution. But untold whatever, a night before or 2 nights before, he had a quarrel with the wife. And the quarrel, ilifika pahali mpaka ni kama alifukuzwa ama alifukuza bibi kwa nyumba. One of them left. That issue came into the public limelight the day of voting. And I remember Miri Mabona. She is the one who rose up and said, how can you tell us to entrust the issue of EACC to this Wakili who beat up his wife 2 nights ago? We all voted that lawyer out. That we set that standard. And shortly thereafter, within months, we completely dropped the standard. So it's not a question, because chapter 6 is the soul of the Constitution. And chapter 6, the soul of the Constitution, has completely been ignored, even in the vetting and the rest. So I agree with what you're saying. It's unfortunate that we seem to lose people. Not seem. How do you kill young people? You know, even during those earlier days, the youth at that ages, at least were being spared, so to speak. But today, it is very scary to see under our new constitution, you get people still going through the same atrocities. But there is hope here.
There's hope here, and there's a place to end on.
The hope is this one, before you edit.
Okay, go.
If you pull a trigger and kill Lex Masai, I know what they are doing, which they were trying to do to Bridget, the girl at Kiambu. Remember the 12-year-old girl who was shot by he was killed by a police bullet. And they were doing everything on earth to substitute the bullet, which is what is being done. And that is the failure of IPOA. But for police officers, for as long as you execute that illegal and lawful order, na upatikane, hakuna mtu atakuja kutoka mbinguni kukusaidia. It may have been, it may be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later. But if we pursue it as provided for under our constitution, which is not completely where we would want it to be, we'll still catch up with all those people. So it's upon each one of us to also make sure that we remain respectful to our constitution, even with the shortcomings.
Jeremiah Kioni says that everybody has a role to play when it comes to the implementation of the constitution.
Do some bit of investigation on this chicha thing.
Well, this is
when
interesting.
you went down, where's you?
15 years into Katiba, Secretary General of the Jubilee Party is Jeremiah Kioni. He's been with us. Some interesting observations and admissions this morning in terms of what happened then and perhaps is the reason for things that are still happening today. We continue those conversations. Thank you for being part of that today. It's 8:10. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Great.
Morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Embattled Kericho Governor Eric Mutai is once again today banking on technicalities to save his job as the Senate begins hearing his impeachment case, his second in under a year. Mutai, accused of gross violation of the Constitution, abuse of office and gross misconduct, has filed 3 preliminary objections seeking to have the proceedings dismissed at the onset. Last October, senators terminated a similar removal bid against him after agreeing with his objection that the Kericho County Assembly had failed to attain the required 2/3 threshold. In this new attempt to impeach him, Mutai has once again fronted 3 preliminary objections in a bid to convince the Senate to once again terminate his impeachment at the preliminary stage. In the preliminary objection filed with the Senate, the governor argues that court blocked the impeachment, yes, at the county assembly. He also argues that the assembly did not achieve the required numbers to remove him. The exhumation of bodies in Kwabinzaro, Kilifi County continues today, even with the latest exercise having seen a woman and a young child being among 6 bodies exhumed in the village yesterday. Several graves have been identified, even as so far 19 bodies have been exhumed in the operation that began on Thursday last week. The victims are believed to be followers of a cult, with many being sought by their families. It should be noted that 11 people associated with the cult remain in police custody as investigations continue against them. Government pathologist Johansen Odwar says the bodies were not buried at the same time.
The work of exhumation this week, and we proceed with the autopsy, which probably we might start the next week. There are variation in the state of postmortem changes in these bodies, in that in some graves we find that it's totally skeletonized, but like today there are some graves where we find that their skeleton, which is mixed sort of with some flesh. So this indicates that they were not buried at the same time.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has launched a blistering attack on President William Ruto, accusing him of orchestrating corruption and bribery within Parliament. Speaking on a local TV station, Gachagua claimed that President Ruto has no moral authority to accuse lawmakers of corruption, alleging that the head of state has been paying members of Parliament and senators to advance his political and legislative agenda.
State House has become a crime scene. Last 2 weeks ago, 15,000 young people were there. They were each given 2,000 as a bribe so that they can say 2 terms. Corruption is being practiced in the highest office in the land in broad daylight. The deputy president is carrying money with sacks, bribing women, bribing young people to say 2 terms. And then the president is here pretending that he can fight corruption. Where does he start? When he was talking in that meeting, after the meeting, he gave those MPs each 100,000. After complaining that they're asking for money and he doesn't want corruption, why was he giving them 100,000? Those MPs have salaries. Why was he giving him money?
Gachagua further said that as a leader, he accepts that he failed by ignoring former President Uhuru Kenyatta's warnings.
Where we are as a country is because, against the advice of Uhuru Kenyatta and many people, that we are going to elect William Ruto and he's a corrupt man, and we'll cry. We are crying. And I myself take blame because I ignored it. I thought it's propaganda. And corruption has become a way of life. Corruption is the modus operandi in our administration, and State House is a crime scene.
And that's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
102.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing...
Statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruth.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human. Everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, stagi kuongea. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit.
The statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change.
A lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Coming in at 12 minutes after 8 o'clock, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Katiba Day. It is the 27th of August, and looking at 15 years ago when the Constitution was promulgated in Kenya. It's around that we will have conversations today. After I remind you that you can actually focus on your legacy, and let's just do that for a few minutes, where you remember that what you leave behind is important. It's not just what you earn and invest, it's what you pass on. And for many high net worth individuals, legacy and values matter just as much as capital. At Standard Chartered Priority Banking, they go beyond the numbers. Their team helps you with estate planning, ensuring your wealth transfers seamlessly while also preserving the values you hold dear. In a world that's constantly changing and shifting economically, politically, even tax-wise, adapting to change is crucial. With Standard Chartered, you're not just reacting, you are prepared. This is about more than financial success. It's about sustained intentional wealth. So start your wealth journey today. Email wealth.ke@sc.com. Because if not now, then when? Now is your time for wealth. All right, karibuni sana. As we're getting into it this morning, we are having a conversation around Katiba at 15. It is Katiba Day. That was gazetted by His Excellency the President, that this was the day that we would celebrate today and remember the day that a new constitution was given to Kenya. And here today, we have for the first time Spice Baraza, whereby we will have conversations not just in the room, not just Kenya's biggest conversation among us and guests, but among more people who will come in to share their views in terms of what's happening. And so we say good morning to those who join us from different parts of the country. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Karibu sana. And as we get into that today, also helping us along with a conversation is someone who will talk to us, talk with us around human rights and actually what we've been able to or not achieve. Dr. Maxwell Miyawa is an international development law scholar and advocate and joins us as well this morning. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
Karibu sana. And thank you for being here with us in the Situation Room. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. Even as we look at that and get into that conversation this morning, Dennis is here as well. He's going to share today's proverb. We'd like to hear from you, Daktari, and from two of you what your interpretation would be on this proverb.
So yes, our proverb today comes from Seychelles, a country in the southern part of the continent, made of islands. Tourism continues to spearhead the country's economy. They are big in fish farming, especially tuna fish from that country. But let's go to our proverb today. Strike when the iron is hot. Strike when the iron is hot. How would you interpret that?
I think I must have heard of that proverb when I was young. There is always time for everything, I think, in my interpretation. But in English, of course, they say the opportune moment or opportunity. The opportune moment is actually the best time for an action or an action-oriented plan. So that when that moment comes, make or take great use of it. There can never be a second chance. Or if the second chance is there, it may not be as the best as the first. So I think it's always very, very important that when the opportunity arises, make greater use of it, ultimate use of it to your greatest benefit. Yes.
So I'll give an opportunity to those joining us today, a lady and a gentleman. So I'll just go with the lady next to me, and then the gentleman with the microphone will just stand and as well interpret the same.
I think strike when the iron is hot. Probably my best interpretation would be that finding the right time to do what you need to do. Because sometimes you know what you need to do, but the timing is off. So you have to find the right time to take the action you need to take and do it to the best of your ability while you have the time to do it. Sometimes you will not always get everything coming at the right time.
So for me, I want to look at it from an entrepreneur's point of view. And sometimes we have brilliant ideas, but there are many ideas that have never seen the light of the day because someone is looking, is waiting for the right time to start. They want to have enough money, they want to know someone. But the good thing is the moment you start, you realize things start aligning. So it's always good to start when the idea is still hot.
Yeah, very well. And I think once the microphone comes to you, you'll just introduce yourself as you respond to the questions or contribute to the conversation. Back to you, Ndu.
Absolutely, thanks, Dennis. Okay, so getting into this conversation, 15 years into the promulgation of the Constitution, we're looking at a couple of schedules, actually not a couple, 5 so far, and getting to the place where the implementation of the Constitution is still one that we are dealing with, and we'll start off with you, Doc, is that when we look at the human rights record, the preamble to the Constitution, of course, beginning with we the people, then have certain rights, privileges, sovereignty that has been accorded them by nature of the fact that they're Kenyans within a boundary that is the geographical space that is Kenya, but the subjective side of it, which is the spirit of the country, that they're granted certain rights. And when we look at human rights, the right to life, the right to food and shelter, the right to an education, the right to protection and securities, the right to not be killed or disappeared, those are all entrenched in the Constitution. And these actually made up the first to second schedule of implementation. While they have been implemented, are they being practiced? And what would you see is a threshold that has or had not been met?
Okay. I begin by quoting the famous words of former Chief Justice William Mutunga, who said, and I think he said this just a few weeks before he retired, and his famous words were, constitution making, does not end with the promulgation of the Constitution. It continues with its implementation. The point there that I think the Chief Justice was stating there categorically is that the Constitution is not just a document, it's a living document. It has a soul, it has a body, and it has a mind. But it has to be made to be a practical reality. Now, on the ideas of rights, rights being entrenched in the Constitution, rights, first of all, are supposed to, protect the individual, ensure that the individual realizes their own full potential. Rights are also supposed to protect communities, particularly the marginalized communities. Now, when we look at 15 years later, that's quite a long time, talking about 15 years from now. But I think we probably may not be in the right position to look at 15 years only. You look at probably where we came from, the pre-2010 Constitution. That is what we call the 1969 Constitution. And the guarantees that were entrenched in that Constitution compared perhaps to the fundamental rights that are entrenched in this Constitution and how they have been practiced. The first thing that I can say is that we have come a long way. I think we have come a long way in the promotion of fundamental rights and freedoms. You do that two different things, protection and promotion. Now, then you ask yourself, the question is that how have we fared on, 15 years later post the 2010 Constitution? The first thing that we must state is that we have one of the most progressive, Bill of Rights actually in the world. Other than that of South Africa, because of quite a number of guarantees that it makes. One of them, the very first thing, and I want to talk in the context of people we have seen around, people like Okoh Mtata, Okoh, who have come to the Constitution, that the Constitution has actually made every Kenyan to speak, to realize their right, to realize that they can protect themselves in their own way. That's what Okoh Mtata has been doing. The reason why that has been happening is that the Constitution has expanded what we call locus standi, the legal standing. The fact that anybody can move to court, claim their rights, seek the protection of those rights, even if they have not been harmed, even if they have not been injured, including protection of the Constitution. Now, where have we come from in that regard? We have come from a place whereby anytime there was any harm on the public or citizens generally, nobody would have an opportunity to go to court. The only person who, perhaps by law, was enabled to go to court to protect the public was the Attorney General. And you look at cases, for example, the case of Raila Odinga versus the Attorney General, Martha Wangari versus Kenya Times Trust. All these cases would go to court where the public was involved, but they will be thrown out primarily because any member of the public would not have legal standing to protect any member of the public or to bring any claim before the court so that the public can be protected. So we have come a long way in that regard. That's why most recently you have seen Okoh Mtata has consistently gone to court to protect members of the public, to protect the Constitution.
So we're saying that essentially now that as compared to times gone by, with this new Constitution, we have the opportunity, for example, to take cases to court and they be heard as citizens protected under law.
That is exactly what I am saying. That under the previous Constitution, there was a great deal of limitation on any members of the public, where there was public harm, where there was public injury, where there was any violation of public interest, so that nobody would approach court except the Attorney General who will bring that claim on behalf of the public. Under the current Constitution, any person can bring a claim to protect the public, to protect public interest. On my own, I have personally brought a case against a Chinese constructor who was doing a road development project, and that road development project caused a lot of harm. The violation of the right to a clean and healthy environment, the violation of the rights of the people, the right to development of a particular people somewhere in the county of Kisumu. Under the previous Constitution, I would not have been able to do that. The only person who could have done that was, one, the people who are injured or the Attorney General. But there comes a time when people do not know their rights. Okay? So where people do not know their rights, anybody can bring a claim on their behalf. And I think that's why our Constitution has fundamentally transformed the human rights practice.
So in a nutshell, I hear what you're saying. It opened then a door for the rest of us to lay claim over what we all have been fighting for. We've had this conversation since yesterday, and the new Constitution was coming from a background of there was a need to come up with something different. We had violence that then led Kenyans to demand for a new social contract. And you're saying enough is enough. We need a new governance structure. We need to relook at everything as a country. Now, when we talk about human rights, we've looked at hits, misses, and perhaps gaps in a lot of the structures that have been laid in the Constitution, from how the formation of the police, and where we're seeing gaps where we have oversight bodies, but then we didn't create mechanisms of accountability within that framework. Now we come to transitional justice. We are coming off violence. That is what then brought this new Constitution. And today we are sitting here talking about violence that we've seen in the country since last year. And this violence, depending on how you're looking at it, you have a situation where you have Kenyans then demanding for their rights, the right to be heard, the right to have their side of the story heard, the push for the finance bill. And then you had MPs who are saying, you know what, we're going to pass it anyway. Then the next thing that happened, it spiraled into violence. We saw a lot of young people losing their lives. We go back to this constitution, and I keep talking about the framers of the constitution. The constitution in this case, in terms of transition justice, in my opinion, and I want to pick your mind on this, did it envision to create or embed a mechanism for transitional justice like what we have, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report that was sidelined, in terms of if there's a case from the public, not only the people, in this case the police, going to be accountable, but we need a process that then will give the people being affected justice?
I think there you're talking about a very important value, constitutional value, the value of accountability. And accountability, essentially defined, means, one, that you have to be responsible. So there must be certain obligation that you have to fulfill. That's one aspect. So the responsibility dimension of accountability. The second aspect of accountability is that you have to be answerable. Answerable means you, when called upon, you should be able to explain and give answers, satisfactory answers to the people who are affected. The third aspect of accountability, of course, is the sanction dimension of accountability, that if there is any injury that you have occasioned to the people, where the people have suffered harm, you should be able to be sanctioned by law. And sanction can be in terms of punishment, it can be in terms of public censure, it can be in terms of making people to pay a fine. Or making compensation for that matter. And of course here we have been talking about compensation, particularly in cases where people have been harmed, people are expressing their rights, people are demonstrating and picketing and have been harmed. Let's begin with from a very, very critical institution that is envisaged and being provided for in the Constitution, that is the National Police Service. The National Police Service, of course, it's very critical, and we can talk about the police generally, not specifically in relation to the Kenyan police. The police, of course, remember, is the arm or the institution of coercion on behalf of a government. A government is an entity that exists in law to maintain law and order, to ensure that people follow the law, to ensure that people are not harmed, or there is no injury inflicted. But at the very heart of the police cultures, there's one aspect that is always inescapable, is inevitable with the police. That is the culture of coercion, the culture of brutality in our country. But it's not only in Kenya, it's across the board. I mean, the police force is always very, very coercive. Even that's why they wield a gun every time that's why they're in uniform. Now, the thing is this, that in the process of, and this is what the Constitution envisages, that where a person exercises public power or in the process of conducting public duties, and there is an injury that is occasioned, he must be accountable. And that accountability as well applies to the police force. This arm or agency of the government that always is very coercive, is always very brutal. In fact, that's how the police looks at themselves.
And that's why they changed it from force to service. But
now, yes, that's why it has been changed. But you know what? One thing about Kenyan cultures, public cultures, that cultures really don't change much. And I think that's why there has not been a mental shift.
There's a lot that is coming from this side, Wakili. But even as we have the discussion on National Police Service, remember, as the Constitution was being implemented now, there is the aspect of the appointment of the Inspector General, where that now was supposed to be led by the Commission. But you know that Parliament went in and changed how that is done, and the President now had the right now to appoint, then forward that to Parliament. But even as we talk about that, you talk about the Bill of Rights, where we've come as a country. One would ask, we've come from far, but seems as though we are going back to where we were, because nothing much has changed. Look at, you go demonstrate, you're shot. The President himself tells you, I'm going to shoot you in the leg. A member of Parliament, given these powers by Kenyans, says, don't even shoot on the leg, kill them. That is just the reality on the ground. But that's not me to say. Let's just hear what these gentlemen and ladies here have to say. I'll start with the lady.
Okay, my name is Eva. I think our struggle with implementing the Constitution, as Dennis said, is mostly accountability, because the system depends entirely too much on personal integrity. Because it depends on who is in the office, and that determines how things are run in that office. When it comes to roadside proclamations about shoot people in the leg or shoot to kill and all that, that again is dependent on personal integrity, because we've seen cops who will engage with protesters reasonably. We've seen them get insulted and engage with protesters reasonably without any use of force. We've seen cops who have decided, you know what, I'm not dealing with this, and they shoot. They don't care if you die, they don't care if you're injured, that's not their business. We've even had them say things like, you're lucky you're not dead, right? So the reality is, all those oversight commissions, whether it's IPOA or EACC, even the judiciary, it is entirely too dependent on who is sitting there and their personal integrity and their philosophy on how leadership should go. Instead of having a situation where the framework for accountability does not depend on who is in office. The framework for accountability ideally should not depend on whether or not you believe I have the right to live or the right to tell you that you're being stupid. That's because that's what brought the issue, right? Because someone said something and you decide, you know what, I'm offended by this. You get arrested, you get beaten, someone is dead right after that. So ideally, we should move past depending on personal integrity and just build frameworks that work.
I think we'll take two more.
Go ahead.
My name is Obets, and I think it's important for us to go backwards to understand where we find ourselves, especially in terms of issues to do with lack of accountability. The police force and how it was set up especially is a colonial relic, and it was supposed to protect the colonial system at the time, and over time we've inherited it and not much change has been done. The people who've benefited from this are the political class, and they've done it at the expense of the ordinary people. That's why it's very difficult for them today to understand why you go to the streets to protest, despite the fact that the Constitution has given us the right to do so. And this is informed by a relic of also, they call the Public Order Act, which is problematic. And we tried to change that recently. But at the core of it was the Public Order Act, which was problematic. So the concern is we may have cosmetically changed the police from police force to police service, but we didn't change the software, the people. We didn't train them to learn to deal with people and understand that the structure of the new constitution is not the old type, but a new system that is, we say, more advanced and very progressive, but the people want to live with the old order. It's not possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Kindly stand so they can see.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Anthony Mureithi Moko. I think just to take a back step, when the young people in this country rose in June 2024, they had one simple demand: implement the Constitution. And when you look at the Constitution, it gives separate arms of government independence. And the reason the framers of the Constitution found that to be wise was because the Constitution was supposed to provide checks and balances. Okay? But where are we today? And I'll come to the most recent proclamations by I think it's the leader of majority. When the president, that is executive, attacked the parliament, what did they say? He takes to the floor of parliament and says, we can remove you from office and there's nothing you can do to us. So in that moment, he chooses to exercise the authority given to them, parliament, by the Constitution. Now, the president, again, will also choose to implement the Constitution when it suits him. Now, where do we need to go as a country? And this is where the young people have been coming from. And this is the voice that they feel no one is hearing. They are saying, we need to move from persons to the Constitution. Let the Constitution work as it's supposed to work, not when you few people feel it is supposed to work. So, again, the young people are saying, implement the Constitution as it is written. And that's why they remain. If you ask them, do you have a leader? They say, no, we don't need a leader. Implement the Constitution. It doesn't matter who is leading. If we implement the constitution, Kenya will run as it's supposed to, and everyone will feel they exist.
If we implement the constitution, Kenya will run as is. Is it about individuals or is it about constitutionalism?
So let's look at a time gone by where previously to open your mouth and say something would possibly land you, in jail, or worse, would land you disappeared for some time, and then maybe either you turn up dead or your family members are at a loss as to what happened to you. Many would say, Doc, that the gains that have been made guarantee you just that we can sit in a room like this and have views and we can speak about them in a public manner. Looking at the Constitution over the last 15 years, that it has guaranteed those rights. But what we're saying here seems to be different from that just because you can speak in a public setting doesn't guarantee you that right which has been enshrined in the Constitution. And I believe it was Obed who said that, what, it was cosmetic in change. It was cosmetic. We did the top layer, but we didn't do the inside part of it. Does it not need a little bit more? It sounds like it needs a radical surgery for us to really say truly that human rights are actually then being protected. Is that the case?
Okay, there are particularly quite a number of issues here. Because it is true that constitutionalism has not quite guaranteed us some of these rights. Of course, constitutionalism means, in broad terms, things to do with democracy, the exercise of fundamental rights and freedoms, the exercise of judicial powers, separation of powers, and so forth. And this is, I go back to where I started from, that the promulgation, the constitution making, does not end with the promulgation of the Constitution. It begins with its implementation. Clearly, 15 years is such a short period of time that we expect, the actualization of all the visions of the Constitution. Remember, there are quite a number of visions. Human rights is one of them, leadership and accountability, devolution, sustainable development, and all these other things. And they will take quite a number of time for us to realize some of them. But here, because we're talking about human rights, anytime we're talking about the implementation, the realization of human rights, we're talking about institutions. And I think I go back to where we're talking about the police, institutional cultures. And I think one of the issues that Dennis raised is that how is it that we expected the Constitution to give us a new beginning, a clean slate, actually a complete break or disjuncture from the past. And that disjuncture would have seen new police cultures, new police behaviors, new political behaviors, new political cultures. But that is not the case. And I think I remember when I was young, by the way, anytime we saw a Land Rover in our village, you would duck into the thicket, you would jump into the river, because that was the hand of the president.
But it still happens today. Does it not still happen today? And yes. I think this is what folks are saying.
Yes.
If we can take an interjection just a little bit, Doc, that in the days gone by, you would jump into a thicket. Well, today, during a protest, or if you said something, or even if you put something on social media today, that you are afraid that somebody might pick you up in the evening.
And just to bring in the same perspective, because Obed's talked about something to do with the cosmetic, and I feel there's a big disconnect between the political class and we the people. Because look at what the people are asking for, implementation of the Constitution. What are they asking for? And then look at the political class, the kind of bills they are coming to propose. You can remember the bill that was proposed by the former MP, Geoffrey Ruku. You can also look at the one that was proposed by Esther Passaris. They are looking at having more punitive legislations that will protect them from the civilians, whereas the civilians are asking for more accommodative legislations that makes us feel part of this country, whereby when the Constitution is being implemented, all of us feel safe in our country. But what is happening? Right now, no one is feeling safe. So we are looking at, can I peaceably go to the streets and protest and picket for my rights? Or maybe I leave and then never to be seen again. So what are we looking at? I think there's a disconnect and there's lack of goodwill in implementation, because every other person who is in the political class, on the ruling class, they're looking at how can they protect and preserve and we're not making legislations for posterity, because if you look at such bills, they're looking at how can we protect ourselves right now. But when we are outside there, they're the same people will be now calling against the same.
Thank you. My name is Wycliffe. From my perspective, I think I want to look at it from an umbrella perspective. And one of the things I look at the Constitution being is a guide, not the standard of always operating in the same format. Because the people who drafted the Constitution wanted the Constitution to be able to guide us through from where we were to where we want to be. Now, my biggest disappointment is that the people who are supposed to be the guardians of the Constitution are the same people trying to butcher it, trying to make it seem like it's, regular talk. So one of the things that I look at is that if we're talking about, for example, human rights, what do we want to see in the country? And then let's set a standard for it, so that when we say that we are celebrating, I really don't think there's anything to celebrate at 15, because much as Daktari said, it's been 15 years. We don't see any change.
Wycliffe, let me throw that right back at you. What do we want to see in the country as concerns human rights, whether it's a year later, whether it's 15 years later? What do we want to see?
First of all, my expectation would be we need to see justice. We need to see people being able to say that somebody is held accountable for a crime. One of the things I think we all feel like is that the young people who were killed last year and some who are still disappeared till today, we still see nothing. We have offices, we have institutions, we have people in governance who we've given the power to do something about it, but all we seem to see is a lot of silence. And the political class is coalescing together and telling us that people don't have a voice in this country. And I'm sorry to say, but I don't think we're in a plantation anymore. We're in a country, a republic, where people have voices, and those voices need to be respected and honored.
I think as we ask that question on what we want to see, let's just ask everybody here to just tell us, in one word, what is it that you want to see in this Constitution? What do you want to see with regard to the Constitution and its offering? Okay, Sawa, go.
I don't know how to use one word.
All right.
My name is Sophie Mokorenje here, and I would like to say, first of all, it is absolutely naive of us to expect the government of William Samoei Ruto to implement the Constitution, because he led the campaign against this Constitution. He did not want a people-propagated Constitution. So sitting here and expecting him and his cabal to implement this Constitution is wasting our time. In fact, we should be thinking of who then should we mandate with implementing the Constitution. But if you look at the way the Constitution is structured, it is structured to give the people power. And the people power can be exercised directly or indirectly. But if you continue to read into it, the powers are more given to the indirect control of the people through the parliament. But if the parliament fails, then chapter 15 goes to talk about the independent commissions that are there to oversight the state and to ensure that the state actually implements the Constitution. But then there's a catch. Parliament is still the one that is mandated to fund these institutions, to oversight state organs. So have we shot ourselves in the foot by mandating Parliament to fund these oversight institutions? Yet what we're seeing right now is the continued defunding of the state organs, of the commissions that are mandated to oversight them.
In terms of what I want to see happening, there's been conversation going around NGCDF. I think I want to see the retention of NGCDF. NGCDF speaks to a fundamental question of social empowerment, of social justice. Those people who are not able to go to school, those areas who have been marginalized for years and years, schools that are dilapidated. When we were young, we went to schools where the door and the window could not be differentiated. We went to school where the floor was all as dusty as the road outside there. Now, I know there have been conversations around, and I'm still talking about social and economic justice to the people who deserve it as part of the implementation of the Constitution, as part of looking back from where we have come from. Now, the Constitution entrenches what we call social and economic rights. Social and economic rights, of which the right to education is one of them. And as a social welfare program, we should be asking ourselves at the country, how do we realize, for instance, the right to education for the people who need it the most? You know, and CDF helps people, even if that 3,000 or 5,000 shillings, it helps people down there, people who are not able to afford food, even those day schools. Places where there is no schools. Actually, in my area, the last school that was built was in 1989. We're talking about a particular infrastructure, just to shift the conversation. So in terms of realization of the various aspects of the rights that are entrenched in the Constitution, there can be several mechanisms of doing it. It can be at the national level, at the county level, it can be at the constituency level. I know there have been conversations around the fact that, you know, MPs should only be involved, constitutionally speaking, in representation, legislation and oversight, and that they should not be involved in development projects. But I think the Constitution gives us a duty to protect rights of others, to ensure that the rights of others are not violated. So each and everyone has a duty to uphold the Constitution. Now, in terms of progress, in terms of the realization of rights and fundamental freedoms, other than entrenching social and economic rights in the Constitution, we have seen the judiciary has made pronouncements, for example, that protects particular rights and fundamental freedoms. One of them, of course, the right to housing. There was that case here in Nairobi. It's called Mitubel. Those people who live in Mitumba village. And for many years, the government did not have any policy on housing or how to protect people who live in the slum areas and so forth. And we have seen court making pronouncement to compel the government to undertake particular actions. So the Constitution is a living document, it's a living tree. It has got to be realized, but at least in certain aspects, progressively. You know, you do not expect governance to change overnight just merely because we have the Constitution.
But in some cases, don't we expect that? And there we go, and it's going crazy. So we'll take a couple of comments from you in just a minute. And this is coming off of this premise that I think that's the problem. That shouldn't we expect it to change overnight? Shouldn't we expect that certain things should stop and other things should start? Dennis?
Thank you. I have one big problem. At least where it all starts is everybody has a right to life. That's the only other way you can enjoy all the other rights. But we have a system where we've allowed and supported mediocrity for far too long. And look at the appointments that are made. Look at the people who are given responsibility to take care of very fundamental and institutions. It's unfortunate that we allowed to reward patronage and loyalty at the expense of people who are qualified and have the capacity to do what is right. Because these ones don't question because of loyalty. And the other thing, unfortunately, it's so easy to buy people because a majority of us do not have enough. It's about survival. So today, if I'm going to criticize government, I risk two things, either being out of work or dead, or at least being cancelled completely. So what we need to do is, we have a progressive document, but we live in the past. Vestiges of the old constitution exist. We are trying to create extra legal institutions, like we're going to quote the CIS situation. So the truth is, we do not have goodwill to live as per the current constitution. We probably didn't know what we negotiated for. Unfortunately, the political class are shocked that this is what we decided and it's not working for them. Kenyans have accepted that we need a new constitution and it's working for us. It's not working for the political class because they are controlling people a certain way.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Elijah. I work with the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, which is a creature of the Constitution. And my perspective is that the progress and the realization of human rights, and I'd like to return back to the Mitubel case, is that the government was told that progressive realization has to have a process in which government must make considerable steps to implement or to realize these rights. And that means placing the appropriate resources in relation to its own capacity to ensure that these rights are realized. I'd like to go back to also some of the situations, especially on the right to property. we've seen massive evictions to give way to corporations because our state has gotten into agreements with foreign entities to provide either economic activities in various parts of the country. And we are seeing massive evacuations of individuals on the pretext that we are trying to bring in a common economic activity. But the manner that it is done violates the integrity and the dignity of these individuals. Even the Ogiek case that, for example, I'd like to use, which Kenya has been cited that it needs to respect the dignity and the culture of these people, but it still has remained a challenge in terms of implementing the decisions that have come from the regional courts and even the Endoroy's case. So when it comes to certain aspects of the realization of human rights, it's important for us to have an introspection to see, while the aspirations were progressive, especially for economic and social and cultural rights, it does not mean necessarily that we now use that progressive realization to take a back seat and say right to food, right to healthcare should be left. We give ourselves time to progressively realize. I would cite, for example, with the attainment of the right to health is that we should onboard up to at least 15% of the population to have a backing in terms of a support for a medical service system that is available to the people. But we are constantly seeing, as much as our country has been progressive to set up the 4 legislations in terms of realization of universal health care coverage, there are still glaring challenges in terms of how the process of this was attained and also how it is being implemented. We are seeing more cases of corruption, more cases of impropriety, and it calls to us to rethink, to look into our systems and see, while the Constitution has placed the highest standard of attainment of healthcare, then the question is, how are we to attain this? Are we going to attain this because of either political expediency, where bills are passed in record timelines, or are we to do it in a process that is consultative, that is inclusive, that ensures that even the least amongst us in society is also brought on board to ensure that their needs and their rights are guaranteed. Maybe I'll leave it at that.
And you see, Wakili, when you talk about governance and the progression of the same, I'll just take an example in terms of when the Constitution 2010 came into place, there was devolution that was also included there. Once we got to the next election, there was no question of should this wait or not. We got into it full force. Now, it comes to the other laws that have come into place. We talk about in the current dispensation, affordable housing, public participation happened or not. That is subject for debate. But once it was passed in Parliament, did we have a chance? No. We are in it full force. Now, we talk about SHA. Conversations were had. Public participation happened or not, subject for debate. Are we in it full force? Then when it comes to governance, why does there seem as though we can wait?
I think the problem is we've started talking about progression in terms of at my time, when progression should have milestones. There is no other contract in the world where you don't have milestones or KPIs that have to be met within a certain timeline. So, for example, if your contract is to build a new studio, you've been given 2 years. In those 2 years, you will have milestones that you should have met at certain points, whether it will be quarterly, it will be biannually. You will have milestones that you must meet. And if you don't meet them, then you need to come back to the table and say, this is why we were unable to meet them. So we cannot say that, okay, it's progressive, so let's wait. Let's see how it goes. Let's consult. There has to be a timeline, and there has to be milestones that are built into that timeline that tell us this is how far we've gotten. It's the same way we had Vision 2030 that we ended up. we threw it out, I guess. I don't know. Sustainable development goals. They have a timeline. They have a progression that can be, it's measurable for all involved, not just for the institution. It is all of us have signed up to a contract where we know at this point in time, whether it's 10 years from now, 30 years from now, we need to be at this place. Again, the struggle we have with holding people accountable is the political class still expects fealty. They expect adoration. Like, we appreciate your leadership. No, you are given a job. Dennis, I don't think your boss comes and tells you, thank you very much for doing your job. I love you. Congratulations. Nobody cares.
I actually don't remember the last time we spoke.
Exactly, because the reality is that you were given a job, you're being paid a salary, you expected to deliver. I don't owe you gratitude because you asked for the job. Right? I don't owe you adoration. I don't owe you anything. I expect you to do the job you are given.
I will I'll take it back to you guys. But Dennis, low-key, me, I love you as a friend.
We've been having this for a minute. This bromance eventually will live out maybe place. We're going to take a last comment from Wakili, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have this more in the next hour. So here he is, and we're saying that, it looks as though we need to say, okay, well, you've implemented the first schedule of the Constitution. Congratulations. I'm hearing that there shouldn't be, a congratulatory point that we should be taking here. It's a job is supposed to be done. It needs to be done. And what is front and center is the protection and the safeguarding of the people and what concerns them. What role are the people supposed to play in all of this?
In answering that question, I think everyone here is talking about extra constitutionalism, or that which is done in non-conformity to the Constitution by the government agencies and other institutions. And actually, I do agree with all of you. I'm not here to speak for the government or to speak against the government, just to give you the proper constitutional view, that which we teach at the university. Always remember, the people who are in charge are who? First of all, these people are politicians. They are members of a political party with particular or purportedly particular ideologies. And the idea about political parties is this, that you galvanize people around you, you go into an election, once you win the majority, you take over the instruments of leadership. And by the way, by their very nature, politicians don't have the interests of the people at heart. These are self-seekers. These are rent seekers, whoever they may be. And then once they take over the institutions of government, the instruments of power, do you know whose interests they serve? And it depends on different polities or political environment. In the United States of America, the government never serves the interests of the people. It is what we call corporate fundamentalism. That's when you're talking about tax breaks, you're talking about tax breaks for big corporations. You're talking about tax relief for billionaires. Even when you're talking about healthcare, you don't talk about healthcare in terms of the interests of the people. In other places, for instance, in South Africa, there's this concept that emerged of state capture, by the Guptas, so that all major government projects are given to particular people. When you come to our country, and you remember I talk about politicians who have coalesced around a political party or an association, loose or solid, they take over the instruments of power, and then they do not serve the interests of the people. When you come to our country, that's why every time there's a government appointment, people look at the names. Whose name, which region, which ethnicity, and so forth. The people who are in power serve different interests. It can be personal interests, it can be ethnic interests, it can be any other interest, including a corporate interest. And I think that's why there is a lot of extra constitutionalism, that which is done outside the Constitution. For instance, you may have the Constitution saying this, but in practice, completely a different thing happens. The reason why we are where we are, is that we have an unholy alliance in our governance structures, an unholy alliance between virtue and vice. Now, and in terms of the leadership of our country, you can have people who are well-meaning. That's why Parliament is there to pass a legislation or a law. that is going to govern a particular area. But within that law, certain interests get infused, certain interest gets infused into that law such that it does not serve the legitimate purpose, the people's interest. It does not seek to serve the people's interest. So the biggest challenge in terms of the implementation of the Constitution is not the question of progressivity. It is what we call in political parlance the continuity amid discontinuity of history.
Okay, we're going to take a break and then you'll say that in English when we come back from this break. We're having a conversation. Katiba at 15, and it's the first time Spice Baraza. We will come back and talk about that. We'll take a look at what's going on with the news. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation at 9:01.
Around the world, 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has declared that he will contest the presidency in the 2027 general election. Speaking on a TV interview, Gachagua said he is determined to be on the ballot, adding that he is both qualified and confident of garnering enough support to mount a serious campaign. Gachagua defended his eligibility despite questions surrounding his impeachment and ongoing battles.
We need to produce one candidate to face him. Kenyans will not forgive any one of us who plays around with that unity. And I can tell you, all of us have committed, and I will be persuading my colleagues that we publicly sign a pact with the people of Kenya, committing that all of us, each one of us will support whoever is picked, and none of us will go astray. So that whoever goes astray will be a traitor to the Kenyan cause. So there will be unity, there will be one candidate, and I believe and I trust that candidate is the man seated opposite you tonight.
Health workers in Sia County have marched to Parliament buildings and the county headquarters to present their grievances to press for the signing of the collective bargaining agreement. The party's secretary Edward Cheriot has urged the Health Committee in Parliament to thoroughly discuss, debate and implement it accordingly.
Tumekuwa na mazungumzo mara 5 na executive ambao hawana suluhu. Tunawahimiza waweze kututekelezea CBA yetu, wa address shortage na waangalie welfare members, kwa sababu ile cover ambayo yenye iko pale ni kitega uchumi kwa executive. UHC wakai imara, mgomo iko protected, na sisi waguzi wengine ilikuwa national strike. Until our demands are met, we are not going back.
And on his part, the party's chairman, Cyprian Nyakundi, said the nurses won't be ready to return to work until the employer fully implements their demands.
Last year, the County Assembly sat and made recommendations that would have addressed the issues that are currently forming basis for our strike. Tulielewana na County Assembly kwamba people would be employed in large numbers, replacement and recruitment. This far, that has not been implemented in accordance with the recommendation. We also agreed that the CBA was going to be signed in the next 30 days. Since last year, the CBA has not been negotiated, has not been signed. So we want to tell the County Assembly Health Committee it was work in futility, and therefore the implementation committee in the County Assembly should rise up to ask the concerned officers in government, why are they not implementing what they recommended?
And an accountant of the Sia County government, Hezron Junior Opio, alias Hezron Opio, is set to be arraigned before the Kisumu Anti-Corruption Court today after he was arrested by the EACC for allegedly embezzling approximately 100 million Kenya shillings through payment of fraudulent and fictitious allowances. EACC said the investigations follows a complaint into alleged embezzlement of approximately 400 million by several Sia County officials.
In the allegation, it had been said that close to 400 million Kenya shillings had been embezzled by those officials. Our investigations as EACC has revealed that it is close to slightly over 700 million Kenya shillings that has been embezzled by way of making false claims in the pretext that they were meant for official duties, which our investigations have confirmed they were not. The monies ended up in people's pockets.
And that's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in...
Statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
6 minutes after 9 o'clock. Happy Katiba Day. Do we say that? Is it too soon? Okay, well, there it is. That's the day where we're working on right now and getting into it. Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, and its first ever Spice Baraza, where we're taking views of more than just one voice, but getting to know what everybody has to say about particular issues. And we'll be doing this more often. We'll take Kenya's biggest conversation to the people. And it's interesting because we say to the people, and that is what essentially the Constitution is all about. So, of course, our focus group here in the studio this morning, and as we continue this conversation, we're looking at Katiba at 15, and we're looking at whether the rights which are enshrined and entrenched in the Constitution are then actually being followed. Eva said very clearly before we came in, they said, you know, we're not asking for you to tell us when you've done your job. Just do the job. We don't need to applaud you. Sophie said earlier that, you know, how can we expect to see certain things under the current administration? Has to be a little bit more different. Obed talks about just a cosmetic lift to some of these things, and we're not really entrenching. And this is the conversation that we go into. Wakili, before we went to the break, you said, you know, we're doing a dalliance between vice and virtue, that we're not really interested in, it doesn't seem like we're interested in actually moving this thing forward. We just dancing here and there. Nobody's really landing the date with the girl. Why?
I think one institution where there's a manifestation of that dalliance between vice and virtue is actually Parliament. Parliament is the place where, you know, is the citadel of actually self-interests, self-seekers, people who want self-aggrandizement. But yet at the same time, they're also the people who are tasked with the implementation of the Constitution, because the Constitution cannot be self-effecting, cannot be self-implementing. It can only be implemented through legislation, various kinds of legislations. For example, I talk about leadership and integrity aspect of the Constitution. You're talking about, various acts of Parliament that are supposed to implement the Constitution. Now, the moment you have individuals who do not care so much, who do not have at heart the country's interests, you're always gonna go wrong with constitutional implementation. And that's why I said just before we took the break that there is a sense in which the disjuncture that we wanted to have from the past has not really happened. So there's still a continuation of the very, very past that the Constitution wanted to put an end to. Actually, the past is still very much with us. All the vices of the past are still very, very much with us. All the poor governance problems are still very, very much with us. And if you remember very, very well in history, and that's why I talk about unholy alliance between virtue and vice, at the time when we were at Bomas and we were talking about, changing the Constitution, the Bomas conference, there was a minister, Michuki, who came and said, and he used the example of liver, juggling the liver. And the idea was that really, all we wanted was to get away with Moi. Now that Moi is no longer with us and Kibaki is here with us, why do we really need to change this Constitution? And that's why we're talking about government being in the hands of individuals who are naturally, inherently politicians, who are either serving who are serving, certainly they always serve different interests, and part of that interest is never the interest of the country. That's why we have got it wrong. But let us also spread some hope, in terms of constitutional implementation. Let us spread some hope. Indeed, quite a great things have happened in the last 15 years. Since the advent or the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. One of them, of course, there are still challenges here and there. There's still problems of corruption. But I think devolution has worked in one way or another. The fact that at least there's decentralization of resources to the people, to the places where they were not there. During our time when we were young, we had what, under the Moi regime, they were calling it district focus for rural development. Money would go into the hands of the PC and the DC, and nobody saw what that money was doing. At least we can see schools being built. At least we can see a small road, feeder roads in the villages being done. At least you can feel the presence of the government, of the people, by the people, at the local levels. We never saw them. We only saw police Land Rovers in the villages when they were coming to arrest people who are doing brewing changa, or people who are opposed to the Moi regime at that particular time. So in terms of that aspect, it has worked. We have one institution called the Judiciary, who has actually managed to keep the government in check. At a time when, in 2013, when the Jubilee administration came into place, the opposition was so weak, it was so muzzled. And at that time, Uhuru Kenyatta tried to, craft all these kinds of legislation, including legislation that were violative of people's rights. And every other time, the High Court said no. They struck out one or two pieces of legislation that would have made Kenya go back to the draconian days. At least there is something that we can say that today, in the Kenya that we live in, we have one institution that is truly independent. Functionally, institutionally independent. We are talking about the judiciary.
Totally disagree.
Okay.
All right,
somebody who said totally disagree.
Yes.
We'll go to you, Dennis, and then come to totally disagree. I think it was Wycliffe. Just a minute. Let's talk to Dennis in a minute.
At the risk of getting stoned, I will attempt to save you in a way. This morning we had Jeremiah Kioni, who was, he talked about the Bomas conference. And he told us, and well, we've known this for a fact. We live in this country, but like our distinguished lady at the back there said, we sometimes pretend to be too naive. We have this tuna kizungu mingi, but kwa ground vitu ni different. He said in Naivasha, MP sat and looked at the document, and they said, look, if you want us to pass this thing in Parliament, you have to remove this recall clause. There's no way they will pass something that will fire them. Or that will create an avenue for them to be recalled. And so the argument was, the framers of the Constitution, the argument was, well, because we really need this document to be passed, what are the concessions? So at that point is, okay, the recall can only happen 2.5 years after somebody is in office. Then they looked at the judiciary and they realized, wait, so we've managed to take this power from the people, but there's a problem with the judiciary. So let's also clothe the judiciary's power. And actually they did that. So it's not entirely independent. And so today, 15 years later, we're still having discussions of amendments that should be made. Whereas we had a commission, and we had Charles Njeri yesterday. The thing is, when Charles Njeri was the chairperson, they were supposed to oversee the implementation of the Constitution, but they were only in office for 4 years, 7 or 8 months, thereabouts. The argument is, currently, they should have stayed at least 10 years to try and look at the measures. You have hits, misses, and the gaps here. So let us try and adjust a lot of these things. Now, my question is, looking at all these conversations, we'll still have to go back to this same Parliament that is in a relationship with the executive. And you look at everything that they pass. Yesterday, we were looking at a headline here where now we're having a conversation around pension for judges. Governors are lining up, MCAs are lining up, ex-councillors are lining up. There's also a conversation and a bill to go as far back as 1984 to 2001. Pay all these people pension. These guys are not passing any bills that touch on these guys in studio here, or myself or yourself. The thing is, it looks like the Constitution has been captured by the National Assembly or by the politicians by extension. what is it that then we'll need to do? Because we're talking Katiba 15. Let's think of the next 15 years with everything that has been happening with this constitution. What then do people need to do to make sure that they take power back, amend a lot of these things and remove a lot of these things that have given these same people power, and when they go back to parliament, they're the same people we expect to pass laws that are going to affect them? It will not happen.
I want to tell you that I have no answer for you.
Okay.
Because these are deeper.
Yes.
These problems, these governance problems run quite deep. And the problems are there at the various levels of the executive, of the judiciary, and parliament. And ever since we have had no solution. So I cannot sit here and pretend to make solutions. But I think because of the age and the generation and the time in which we live in, let us start also talking about accountability from below. Not top down, but bottom up. The people today, the people of Kenya, of Kenya today are very conscious about their rights. Actually, everybody in Kenya, including my mother, knows everything that is going on. So that if the executive is not working, what are the people of Kenya saying? Can we craft our own mechanisms of putting these people into check? And we do not have to wait until the elections time. We do not have to wait until elections time. The people can come up with their own mechanism of checking these politicians.
Well, they tried to do that last year. This year,
and when people are talking about accountability, people only talk about arresting people and taking them to court. This is what accountability should essentially mean.
Okay.
And that's why I think in other parts of the world, they have town hall meetings where the senator or a member of the house goes back to the people and they get scrutinized. They answer tough questions. Okay? If we are saying recalling an MP is impossible, if you're saying the government is not listening to us, if you're saying corruption institutions or institutions that are supposed to fight corruption are not working, why can't the people do it themselves?
Okay.
Why can we not invent our own mechanisms of putting the government into account or leaders into account?
Well,
because in Kenya, no institution is actually working. Why can we not have what we call institutional bypasses? Why can't the people do it themselves? Because nowadays almost everyone actually almost has a smartphone. Everybody knows what is happening in this country. Do it at your own individual levels. Call back these leaders and ask them, why did you vote the way you did in parliament? Okay? Why did you not ask the cabinet secretary for this about what he has not done?
Wakili, there's a lot that is coming from here, and one thing that I'm
throwing an intellectual challenge so that people can also think outside the government institutions that are dysfunctional.
Yeah. Okay. So there is the aspect of the constitution, and the people shall, not the people may. There is that conversation, and Kenyans say we know where we sit with regard to this. And you talk about the constitution and hope that came with the constitution, and that hope pretty much was stripped away by the legislations that followed further that would come to assist in the implementation of the constitution. We talk about devolution that happened, and people say what we did pretty much is just devolve corruption, because look at what is happening in the devolved units today. It is a sad story. You talk about the rights that Kenyans have, that devolution is working. We can see there is a government that is for the people, by the people. But people are saying, it is all right. It is not a favor. That is a job you ought to do. Shut up and do your job. We talk about judiciary and how judiciary has been encapsulated, it has been taken over. And you remember immediately after the 2017 decision by the court, there is a statement that was made by the head of state: we shall revisit. And from that on, you find the funds given to judiciary were cut, and all along judiciary, one might say, has continued to weaken over time. But then again, let's just hear what everyone here has to say. I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I'll keep it very brief. The more I listen to Professor and the more I listen to our reactions, we actually capture where Kenya is at today. The Professor, and with all due respect, you represent the old way of doing things. We represent the new way of doing things. And I'll come and say, it's like when David bought timber and everything to build the new temple for the Lord. And the Lord told him, you'll buy it, but you'll not build it. Solomon will build it. That is what happened when we promulgated the new constitution. The old people wrote it, but it is the young people who have the ability, the will, and the desire to implement it. And so long we wait for the old to implement it, they don't know how to. They have not even figured it out. We figured it out. And that is why, Professor, when you say things take time, we tell you no, things are as instant coffee. And how is this so? When you wanted to impeach the deputy president in this country, it was instant, through our WhatsApp, that instant. When we wanted to implement housing levy, it was instant. So when we need instant things, it can be done. So today, as we celebrate Katiba 15, I will say, as history has taught us, when we did away with the colonialist, this country was handed over to one old man, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, and everyone else behind him was young. And that's the reason we had numerous milestones. When we did the new constitution, we were doing away with the old way of doing things. Actually, when you were talking about the American Constitution, and you used some very concrete words, I can't remember them. But we don't want to learn about the American system. We want to learn our system that we wrote in the Constitution, so that other jurisdictions can say, when you go to Kenya, there's the Constitution. That is all we want. We want to be copied as the country that functions under the Constitution. Thank you.
Wycliffe?
Thank you, Do. In my opinion, I think, and Wakili actually mentioned it quite concretely, and this is my biggest disappointment. For every single hopeful statement you've said at least. And that is where we are as a country. We keep saying at least, at least. It's like we accept bare minimums as acceptable. We have leaders who have shown us that they don't have respect for life. And this is why when I said I totally disagree, it's because when we look at the judiciary and how the different arms of government work, even today, it's like a deal system. It's what are we going to do in order for us to get to point A to B. A very good example is the housing levy. We have a court that said this thing is unconstitutional. However, we give government time to correct it. Why? It's a system of compromises. And that is what is disappointing a lot of young people in this country. That we cannot sit back and say, for once, enough is enough. We have a problem. Let's fix it. Accept that we went wrong. As a people, we have accepted that we chose bad leaders. We have accepted it as young people. But the people who are in those positions of leaderships don't want to accept that there is a country beyond them. That people have a future beyond them. And the day this country starts operating in an environment where the constitution is not based on personality or people or tribe or region, that is the actual day when Kenya will actually grow. I have a personal motto that I keep saying. Kenya deserves better in every single aspect of how we talk about this country, not only when it comes to the constitution. So for me, when I say it's not a celebration, it should be a reminder of why we wanted that new constitution, so that when we speak about justice, we talk about all Kenyans, not just some of us, but all of us.
You see, the one thing that really affects us as Kenyans is that we're not good readers. So we do not know exactly what is mandated to us by the Constitution. According to the Bill of Rights, every person should enjoy rights and fundamental freedoms to the greatest extent consistent with the nature of that right. And if at all the state comes out and says, okay, we do not have enough funds to give you this particular right, the Constitution specifically states that it is the role of the judiciary to come out and hold the state accountable to the point that they are supposed to prioritize, and this is what the Constitution says, the wildest possible enjoyment of that particular right. Your right to education, your right to health, your right to the highest standards of social justice. So the separation of powers in the Constitution was very deliberate when it came to the protection of the powers that have been mandated to the people. So the judiciary has been captured by the executive, Parliament has been captured by the executive, and it is very sad that the institution that has been mandated to protect the people is the exact institution that is afraid of kutolewa chai ya maziwa, kupunguziwa pesa yao, so that they do not protect the people. Lastly, to talk about people mandate. I will take a case study of Professor Kivutha Kibwana when he was the governor of Makueni. He actually was deliberate in involving the people in his governance to the point that before he passed anything, he took it back to the People's Council. They analyzed every single budget, every single project, and they were able to have an input there. So as Kenyans, we do not have a problem of devolution being implemented to the people where the people get services. Our problem as Kenyans is electing people who do not have goodwill for the people. So for me, the problem, like you have said, is not at the top. The problem is with us as Kenyans when it comes to analyzing the people who we actually give the power to exercise on our behalf. So it begins with refusing to be given those 1,000s and 2,000s. In fact, we should make it very expensive. Like for you to come and talk to me, you should give me money that can pay for my rent for 2 months so that I can listen to you. And that is why they serve their own interests. They want to return that money that they have given you to listen to them. And that is why it is never about the people, but about them. So as Kenyans, we genuinely need a mindset change.
Perhaps that's a question that we can look into, Aseto, and Dennis, even as we ask this question out, every time we talk about the fact that leadership is a representation of the people, that who you select as a leader at whatever level it is actually the person that you would also be if you were there, right? So many have said that we can paint the brush strokes of critique, but who are we actually putting into positions of leadership? Are we thinking really beyond standing in a line in the second Tuesday of August to make the decision at the ballot? Beyond who are we actually making the decision to put in? What do you think? Everybody here is of voting age. What do you think when you're making the decision about who you put into power? We again had a conversation previously where they said, are you voting in people of character? Then it is your fault. If you have not voted in somebody of character, how do you expect that the implementation of the constitution is going to take place when the people that you've put in are there for their pocket and not for your protection? How?
Thank you very much. I think one thing we have to always focus on is purpose-driven leadership. Unfortunately, even those that are in power, they have the purpose, it's only that it's negative purpose. So we have to look at, when we are going to vote, who are we voting for? And that has been the major problem, because we agitate all we want, but then when it comes to the very time of making the very important decision, we forget. And we're like, who is our person? Where do they come from? Which language do they speak? Which political party do they come from? And all that. So you find a parliament that is full of, maybe, because I've always had an issue with the ruling party having the majority in parliament, because at that point the MPs forget they were elected by the people and now they start serving the party leader. My prayer is, when you're going to vote come 2027, can we look at, because the problem stems from the people who give direct mandate, who are the MPs. If we have people that are straightforward, people that we can vet based on what they do or the track record they have, but not based on what they say, we will have a better country moving forward.
Thanks. I think the struggle with who we vote for starts with the nomination process, because very good candidates falter at the nomination point because they don't have the funds, right? And normally what ends up happening is the person with the deepest pockets gets voted in or gets nominated to the ballot, and then at that point it doesn't matter, because the choice is between, a rock and a piece of coal. There is no difference, right? So the struggle is making it opening up the space where we are not glorifying wealth as a sign of wisdom or as a sign of competence, because we have that problem. Unfortunately, there's a certain mentality we have that because you've made money wherever you've made it, however, we don't even care how you made it, but because you have money, you've shown up with 3 Prados and a V8, then suddenly you know what you're talking about. It has nothing to do with it. It should be that if someone has the passion and the vision to lead his people, it shouldn't matter how deep his pockets are. It shouldn't matter whether they can give you t-shirts or print posters or any of that. It should matter that they have something to present to you. And that paradigm shift is what we need the most, outside of anything else.
I think when you look at the human rights violations that have happened in this country, to a large extent, they've been done by the state. And the state has intentionally deprived Kenyans what they deserve. Examples abound. SHA is a bad example of how to do bad things with people's lives. It is unfortunate that the government is gambling with Kenyans' lives by changing a system that was functioning, albeit with problems, but come up with a different setup that is going to allow the new thieves in town to steal. What pains me, and what Kenyans are asking, is don't give us all these nice stories. Tell us what you think is important. Instead, implement that which is there. Make it work for everybody. And I keep asking this. Today, we talk about empowerment. You see the PA to the president, somebody we did not even elect, going around parading people and insulting people who've been voted in by people, Kenyans. And then you wonder why we have this problem. Partly Kenyans are part of the problem because we vote, but the leadership, the people who appoint, do not want to appoint people who have the capacity, like Prof, to be able to question the system and tell them what you're doing is not right, this is what we need to do. What we want is yes people. People who today you tell jump and they tell you how high. Unfortunately, that's what we've perfected, and there's a degree of shamelessness and nobody gets punished for doing the wrong thing. For instance, you tell me, in May, we cancelled some hospitals, they're not getting, you're paying them from May to August. Who is responsible for this bad behavior? Where did the money go? Get the person and jail them. But because we can't punish people, it's not going to happen. And that's why people will have the power and feel the need to be able to continue to do that. As long as you don't get punished.
Can't punish or won't punish?
We don't want to because it is work. We are complicit. We try to give public solutions, private solutions to public problems. We have a health system that is dysfunctional. You go to Kenyatta National Hospital today. I'm sorry to say that. Because if you don't know anyone, Ken Walibora sadly passed away because they said they didn't know it was him. What happens to an ordinary Kenyan who has nothing and is not known, has no reputation? What you need is to be able to go to a hospital and get help. Go to a school and get... The problem is the people who are supposed to implement and do what is right are not doing it.
I have a question for Barazik here. How many have voted in any past election? You've all have voted. Before I even ask why and who you vote, well, not who you voted for, but why you voted for the person you voted for, this conversation around every election cycle, I've covered 4 elections as a journalist, and what I've seen is every election cycle we have a rallying call. There's always this euphoria and a movement that propels people then to the ballot. There was a period, 2007, the rallying call at that time, Dr. you can correct me if I'm wrong, was 41 against 1. So everybody was themed around it and everybody went to vote. It didn't matter your affiliation, it was just ethnically propelled and mobilized. 2013, we had that's the period when we had the conversation around the analog and digital. So it was the young tax versus the old tax. At the time in Parliament, the average age was around 60. The average age. So people then said we want a lot of young people in our Parliament, and a lot of guys voted for very many young people, including actors and comedians. 2017, it was Tano Tena. I can't remember the other side. It was always one versus another thing. 2022, it was hustlers versus dynasties. What do you guys think is going to be the rallying call that is going to carry you people and the rest of Kenyans into 2027? What do you think is going to be that thing.
And I think to just top up on what Dennis is asking, the question is, for a very long time, we've pointed a blame to those guys. We've voted for them. They are not doing it. But then again, like we've said, what we see is a representation of who we are, because we are the very same people who wake up in the morning, kumera, we don't care whoever we're putting in. You know what I mean? We are the same people who will line up, take 1,000 bob because I have not voted, give me 1,000 bob to go vote. You know, what is our responsibility in making sure that the people who are there, first of all, we have done our research, interrogated them, and determined that they are the best people? Or is ours to just chill in the house, play Xbox, and not care whoever is on that ballot?
Okay, we can talk about how you play Xbox, but that's okay. We'll answer the question.
This issue about what the rallying call would be and the decision of who to vote for would be determined first from at what capacity is the population able to exercise either the right to vote, to be voted for, or to organize and form political parties and associations that would gear towards securing positions. Important guarantee within our constitution is Chapter 6, which puts a high threshold in terms of integrity of our leadership. But how it is implemented is still a glaring challenge. Also, how people come together. For instance, people within a county ward or within a constituency also is determined by the numbers and also geographical representation. Again, an issue about delimitation of boundaries that is still left. Also, another issue is the level playing field level for every one of us, that as a woman, as a person with disability, as a person from a minority or ethnic minorities within the country, will I have the opportunity, if given a chance, to also vie for these positions? So again, Article 100 of our Constitution and also the articles on the two-third gender principle within our Constitution, still yet another glaring gap that ought to happen. Also, the issue around campaign financing within our electoral system. To what capacities are the funding conducted within our institution? We have an act that has remained unimplemented for the longest, passed in 2013, pushed to 2017, not implemented in 2022. We are glaring to now an electioneering cycle where we really do not know where the source of your funding is, and so we do not know which interests you are serving as a political aspirant, or what kind of deals or arrangements will you enter into in the name of preserving or representing the people that you're seeking who want to vote for you. And so some of these challenges must be addressed before we even decide what the rallying call is, because we can come and congregate, and the vulnerability of our population because of unaddressed historical injustices, because of unaddressed economic situations that make most of our population either vulnerable and susceptible to being taken advantage of by the political class, is now the result of what we get is the kind of leaders that we end up choosing. That you can have an individual who's been declared bankrupt, who's been declared not fit for public office, who's been mentioned adversely in different reports implicating grave, serious violations of human rights, taking either a leadership position in our country. So it also is reflective of our society to say that there is, even as we reflect, could we now re-examine our political processes, how the strength of political parties and the strength of the registrar of political parties and how political parties arrange and formulate, can they adhere to the principles of the Constitution, where we have leaders who are appointed in an open process, not the just process where the nominations or the party primaries are conducted in a manner that we do not know who are the members of a political party. Kenyans increasingly finding themselves members of political parties without their own consent. So issues are again around data protection. So even as we think about the leaders that we want to choose, are we in a position as a country to determine that this leader is there legitimately, or is seeking a position in a legitimate manner, or is serving other interests that are beyond us, and that the populace is just playing the role of either useful, I would like to coin it as useful idiots, where you are participating in a process not knowing the grand scale of things, where deals were already negotiated before, and you're just part of the process that will yield an outcome that is seemingly already predetermined.
So, Dennis, you ask a very, very good question, because it is important to know what we need as a people who want the change and live the change we want to see. I have taken a deliberate effort with my friends here. I'm a travel consultant by trade. That's my training. However, I moonlight as an activist. Mm-hmm. Every evening, we do X Spaces on Mondays, Sundays, and Fridays to discuss issues that affect policy, governance, and issues around politics. And our agenda as Mizani 254 is to ensure that we inform Kenyans on policy issues, ensure that Kenyans are informed and told and allowed to participate and make contributions in such a way that it's factual. It's not just about emotions. It's about facts and what we need to do. We've identified areas that have had problems. For instance, we did have a conversations around corruption. In the last week, we've been discussing corruption. And what we have done is, previously we've written to EACC and give information on what we think can be done. We've also held conferences. We had one in March, where we had people talking about purpose-driven leadership. We had the ODPP and EACC participating. What we are trying to do is put young Kenyans together, and Kenyans who are interested in ensuring that we want to see a better leadership, to talk about it, but at the same time, ensure that they are part of the leadership they want to see. Because it's useless to talk about a country that you want to see, but not be a part of that change that you want to see. So that's what we are pushing as a people, to ensure that we get a leadership that is purpose-driven and one that allows and listens to the people. Not because they are saints or you are a saint, but because you have posterity in mind. Because people have to sacrifice now for a better tomorrow, because selfish interest does not help at all.
Wakili, as we come to you just a minute, can I just go to Wakili for a minute and then we'll come back here? Because what I hear, and perhaps it's something that now is starting to stir up in the bellies of people, is that there is a cry for that almost, and if it can't be innate, then you're asking then for there to be a renaissance where you say it's got to come from here. It is not brick and mortar stuff. It's got to come from inside, whereby the people are vested in an accountable government, that it's not just vote you and then we're done with you. It's vote you in and then make sure that everything that you're doing according to the law, but then also according to what the representation of the people dictates. Is that not a possible scenario that Kenya could be entering into today?
That's a possible scenario. But I think having listened to all these gentlemen here, and ladies, there is the bottom line of the conversation today, just to wrap it up, is that there is still, and there has been, a bad governance problem and institutional dysfunction. There has been, and there still will be, economic marginalization and social exclusion. These are all governance issues. And of course, socioeconomic disadvantage. And all these things are the things that the new constitution intended to reform. But why are we still having these problems? I know I've been the punching bag here because I think there was nobody from the government to be attacked. So people think that I'm thinking from the government. I came here to highlight the intellectual perspective of how far we have come. I don't speak for the government, actually, because really. So the thing is this. The major problem in this country of this governance dysfunction, institutional dysfunctions, is that we have weaknesses in how we conceive and practice accountability. People think that by voting in new leaders, by voting out leaders, they are holding those leaders accountable. We have to reconceptualize accountability for this constitution to work 15 years from now or post 2010. Can we reconceive accountability? That's why everybody who has spoken here has spoken in what we call in a Jeremiah terms. You know, the hue and cry, like everyone is complaining. Why are we complaining and not providing solutions to these governance problems? The reason why Western government or societies in the West are more successful is that they have functioning modes of accountability. The government listens to them. Okay? If we do not reimagine accountability, the 2010 Constitution will not serve us. It will also go down in history as the 1969 Constitution. If election as a mode of accountability is not working, why can, and I have not yet offered a solution, we should actually think about them. Actually, I should expect from you guys that if the problem is accountability, there's a problem with accountability because, one, people don't really want Shiv and Shah or the housing levy, but the government still goes ahead and passes it and implements it. And nobody wants it. But nobody is actually raising these questions. People are just waiting until 2027 election to send the government home. Why can't we reconceive other ways of ensuring that the government can listen to us? That's why I said, if the institutions of accountability are not working, why can we not come up with other measures, even if it is people-centered? The people-centered mechanisms have worked in other societies. That was my point at the very beginning. So we should not lose hope, okay, in the new constitution that we have, because everyone has spoken about particular entrenched problems of governance, problems of corruption, problems of legislation not working. Why can we not think about, and actually I should expect that everyone should give us. For me, in my view, I think we should have people-centered mechanisms of accountability, however they may want to look like.
Talking about accountability, there's a conversation here, speaking of human rights. The president, in a Gazette notice dated Monday, unveiled a panel of experts on compensation of victims of demonstrations and public protest, which was one of the ways that then these young people are saying from last year, look, we're not happy with this finance bill, you're overtaxing us, it's a burden for us. They went to the streets. And the thing morphed, and we saw a lot of violence against them from the state. Then this thing escalated to now this year during Sabasaba, where we've lost a lot of young people. And all they were simply doing, and they're saying, look, you can't label us as terrorists when you're trying to fight for our rights. This same constitution is what they're fighting for. My question is, in terms of accountability, in your opinion, do you guys think the president is finally saying, look, I'm going to take accountability on my part, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to form this panel, which has the LSK president, Faith Odhiambo, Amnesty International, Idi Irungu Houghton, and the Solicitor General. And without going into too many details, their mandate will run for 120 days from the date of appointment, and the job is to, among other things, also propose legislative and institutional reforms to address issues surrounding protest and policing culture. Do you feel he's taking accountability? Is there I've not even finished the question, they're all shaking their heads. So let me just throw it to you. What do you guys think?
And I think I'll top up on that question. Yes. Can there be compensation?
Yes.
Without justice?
Good.
You know, you've asked a wonderful question. So I am part of the members that lead a campaign called the 50 plus million campaign. And that campaign was basically a group of people who came together to seek for justice. Because before we talk about compensation, we must first of all find justice. And why is this important? As you do the math to calculate the cost of life and the cost of an amputated leg, which one is easier? We must be clever enough to start by saying which are the low-lying fruits. Is it easier for today's government to do ballistics and say, Baby Pendo was shot by a bullet from us? So it's easier for us to work backwards and get get to the person who actually shot the bullet. So why are we starting with the difficult instead of starting with the easiest? So when we start with what they are saying, compensation and everything, then we dilute the conversation of justice. We have parents who have on record saying, I still remember that lady crying when she was burying her 12-year-old daughter. What was her name? Bridget. She said, my daughter will forever be 12. I do not want compensation. You cannot pay me for my daughter. But what I do want is justice. You don't need a commission to tell you that justice is needed. I would want to answer something else that was asked before. And the professor, this is where me now, this generation agrees with your generation. How do we have an accountable country? Is by reducing the interaction of corruption. And how do we reduce the interaction of corruption? Now me and you now again disagree. I disagree with the point of we need NCGDF. No, we don't need it. What we need is legislative members from the county assembly to the governor. All of them should be lobbying for development, not for funds. Imagine a national assembly. I want us to reimagine a national assembly, a senate, a council of governors, where they go to government and tell them, I was elected because I promised a road from Isiara to Wote. I want that road because my people are asking for that road. Now what do? We have leaders going to ask for money, not for development. We need, now me and you now agree again, we need to calibrate leadership in this country for our MPs to have a Okoh where they lobby aggressively, emotionally, and tell CSs, give me the road that my people are asking for. Imagine a country where CS is put to that kind of pressure. Why are we finding it easier to nail Duale with Chief and Shah? Because it is easier to nail one person than Duale saying, no, I devolved it to the county. Then the county says, no, I devolved it to the MP. The MP says, no, I gave it to the county assembly. The more we have the chain of money going down, the difficult it is to trace that money.
Okay. I think the biggest problem with this committee that has been appointed, first of all, that's putting an elastoplast on a fracture and trying to hope that it works out. Let's just tell it as it is, right? So number one, they're supposed to verify. If I read that Gazette notice right, they're supposed to verify the victims who are going to be compensated, right? Then they're supposed to determine what the compensation will be, while also working with IPOA and ODPP to give recommendations, etc. First of all, IPOA is still investigating cases from Baby Pendo.
Yes.
Right? Still. So how we expect these guys to do it in 120 days is beyond me. IPOA hasn't been able to do it in X years. Even from last year, they've not been able to do it. ODPP has cases pending. Some have been forwarded. Nothing has been done with those files. That's what IPOA said, right? IPOA also said the biggest problem they have is they will ask for evidence or they'll summon people and people don't show up, especially within the NPS, right? The committee has been given summoning powers, but how do they enforce the summoning powers? Because if a court of law can hold a police commissioner in contempt and nothing happens to the guy, absolutely nothing, how will a commission enforce a summons? How will they do it? How do we expect them to do it? So all they'll end up doing is tarnishing their legacies, because the president, all he's done is kick the can down the road. And again, when we talk about compensation, what is the price of a life? What is the price of her life?
What's the going price?
I mean, like Bridget was 12. So what her mother has lost is every milestone, right? She doesn't get to see her daughter graduate. She doesn't get to see her daughter get married. She doesn't get to see her daughter have children. What is the price of that, right? For David Chege's wife and children, who saw his brains on the road outside Parliament, what is the price of that? How do we pay that? How do we quantify their pain or their grief or their suffering or their loss? What do you quantify it as? Because that is someone's father, that is someone's son, that is someone's husband. brother, etc., etc. How do you quantify that? He was shot on the road, right? And it's not even cops who carried him away. It was fellow protesters who are also risking getting shot while they carry him away. So what is the price we are putting on that? What is the price we are putting on an amputated leg? And remember, already, persons with disability funding has gone down this year, right? So what price are we putting on that? Like, in reality, we've kicked the can down the road, and I can guarantee you this is what will come out of it. He'll say, this commission, I gave them the job, they weren't able to do it.
Okay, so I just feel this is a diversionary tactic, because even looking at the composition in itself, because we all can remember Faith Odhiambo was selected for another commission during the 2024, after the 2024 demonstration. I think it was the Public Debt Audit Commission.
Yes.
She declined. And then you see now, if anyone checked X yesterday, she was trending, because now people are appealing, don't accept that. And then you see that again will be like, we are supposed to do this, but the very people who are asking for reforms are not willing to come on the table to discuss. Because if you look at the composition of that panel, people are singled out two individuals that really didn't want them to be on that. And that is the LSK president and Amnesty International executive director, because of the stand they have. Yeah. But you see, these people have been put there deliberately. So the question is, were they asked for them to be there, or they're being nominated, then the Gazette notice in public for them to decline, for the same to be deflated back to the public.
People. Okay, these are questions. We'll take another one. Yep.
Yes, having been serving at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, we've documented various violations spanning the period of this task force, which is 2017 up to now. We have cases of over 201 sexual violence victims. We have over 100 deaths from 2017. We have numerous deaths dating from 2023 during the protests that were led by Azimio, and also last year and this year. We are saying this. While we appreciate the terms of reference of this task force that has been set up, we are noting that they are proposing systems for identification and a framework for also categorization of the kind of compensations that would be available, and also making recommendations for reparations and also other mechanisms for accountability. We welcome those. We note that the period is quite short, so at best they might end up getting a framework, but for you to sufficiently engage with the victims, survivors, and also their families and representatives, it requires a longer period. Even synthesizing and verifying information from IPOA ourselves, and even the National Police Service for anyone who was injured. The categories are quite vast. There are people who suffered economic harm. There are people who suffered disability, gunshot wounds, the people who died. There are people who are, all these individuals are demanding justice. And there are key principles that are set out for a proper reparations framework. And it starts with acknowledgement. Can we have a truth-telling session where the state actually acknowledges and says, this happened? Let us not have conflicting figures. Let us have that. And then the issue about restitution, to restore people to the situation where they were, and also in concerns around guarantees for non-repetition. So these are some of the considerations that we expect this task force to be very keen on, and to establish an appropriate framework.
Indeed. Look, I mean, these are the conversations, and I think we have 10 seconds left. We can give the last one to you, Wycliffe.
Thank you, Do. For me, I get emotional about this because it's very simple. This is not a money problem. The problem with William Ruto and this regime is that for every single problem, they want to throw money at it. This is not a money problem. There's no amount of money you will pay to satisfy the loss of life. And for Professor, you said we need to be hopeful. You said we talk out of anger. This is what hope looks like. The people you see in front of you, this is what hope looks like. And we are speaking like this because we are hopeful for a better country. nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much for making it part of Kenya's biggest conversation and the first ever Spice Baraza this morning. Necessary for us to have these conversations. Dr. Maxwell Miyawa, thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
And for folks who made part of this focus group, each and every one of you, let these conversations continue, because two things happen when a conversation happens. You keep talking, and then from the talking, something is done about it. So thanks for being here this morning. It's something that we'll do every week, starting now. The SpiceFM Baraza will come back next week, and thank you for all the messages that you send in to be part of this focus group, and thank you for making it part of Kenya's biggest conversation this Wednesday, Katiba Day. Something to look forward to. Thank you so much. Good morning at 10 a.m.
The news wire. Mla Obaga. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu Elias Babayao is set to appear before the High Court today as proceedings inch forward in his graft appeal following his release on bond after nearly 6 months behind bars. Waititu secured his freedom on July 31st after nearly 6 months in jail when Justice Lucy Njuguna granted him a 53 million shillings bond backed by a bank guarantee. The bond was issued as he pursues an appeal